mean, I think collectively, like the whole world is right now reaping the karma from times past. We're definitely paying
Yeah.
for our debts in a certain way, you know? It seems to be like it's a, like you said, the last point of digestion before we uh become anew. You know, it's the last
Yeah.
point before we are kind of reborn and digested as the organism that we're supposed to be, or the species that we're supposed to be. But a lot of people can't handle it, man. I think a lot of people can't handle the heat. It's kind of getting to people, you know, because um, it's a matter of identification with the ego, and that's what we're going through right now. It's the ego dying. It's our collective ego dying, like
Mm.
who we thought we were as a species and who we thought we were as the human species, as a human being. uh you know, most people
Mm.
can't handle that re-identification process that we're going through. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what's happening,
Hmm.
because what's happening is I see it as um people can't, it's like when I hate saying the word people because I'm included in that people as well. So we can't handle uh the truth. You can't handle the truth, and the truth of the matter is that we're all this one thing. We're all this one consciousness um that is separate right now, but we're slowly starting to realize that we're all in it together. We're all in this thing together with the globalization of the world, like us being able to connect all over the world and see the atrocities from all over the world, and just see each other no matter where we are in the comfort of our living room, and be able to see what it really is to be a human being in different situations and different places and literally different bodies. That's leading us to see literally us differently. Like when you're able to empathize with somebody else on the computer, I guess in a certain way, it allows you to see yourself differently, right? Because you're like, oh shit, that person's like me. That
Yeah.
person looks like me and they act like me. So I think it's kind of hard to handle for people right now, or us. It's kind of collectively hard to handle uh, the karmic debt of 7.5 billion people, and to be
Hmm.
able to see that, and to be able to witness us reaping the karmic debt of times past from the billions of people in our past and now. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We can't really. It's like the last part of digestion. We're shedding some old skin, whatever it is. This metamorphosis is, it's like growing pains. But I
Yeah.
think on the other side, we become the butterfly and we fly off into the being that we're supposed to be. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.
Ooh.
Oh
What you got, Eli?
That's all. That's it. Just yeah, no big deal. No, I think yeah, there's a lot of truth there. I mean, it's interesting what COVID has done to people. I mean, there's the physical aspect, and like we're all, um, you know, dealing with whatever that is. But really, I think the biggest effect is just like the mandates to stay inside. And the first I was like, oh, it's 2 weeks. It's gonna we'll buckle down. And then sooner rather than later, people start to realize like this might be not forever. I mean, who knows? But it feels like forever, and people start to kind of lose it. And
Yeah.
it definitely reminds me of like when you are at a temple. I think people have this idea of like being at an ashram or a temple as being like, oh man, that's really peaceful. Like that sounds really cool. Like I would love to go to a temple. And then it's like, it's not going to be fun because like you go there and then
Mm-hmm.
you're just sitting with all your stuff. You're sitting with all your stuff. There's nowhere to run. It's quiet. There's probably some like repetitive noise that gets on your nerves or something like that. And the thing is that you're forced to like look at yourself and face your shortcomings and maybe how you interact with people and treat your other fellow human beings and stuff like that. And it's almost like being forced to deal with this COVID situation
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
has people being forced to do something similar to that, maybe not exactly the same, but there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, there's less things to do and occupy your mind, right? You can only play so many video games before that gets, like some, I don't know what people are doing, but and what happens in that process, and as you mentioned, like, disidentifying with ego and like at the individual self, there's a lot of like pain and not physical, but it's like mental, just mental pain, just like the realization that who you think you are might not be like the best self that you could be, but also like really might not matter that much. That's that's a pretty wild thing to go through. But I think people are just like freaking out, and like you said, that they can't handle it. I mean, I think people can handle it, but
we don't know we can handle it.
Huh?
We don't know we can handle it.
Yeah. Yes.
I like how you said, man, we're sitting with our stuff. That's what's happening. We're sitting with our stuff right now. And throughout the lockdowns and currently, we're sitting with our stuff. And yeah, there's only so much you can consume. There's only so many video games you can play.
Well,
sometimes you just gotta sit with your stuff.
I think that's the interesting aspect about just how people have either gone down that path of either, as I kind of see it, self-absorption, I guess you would say self-absorption or self-awareness, right? So you have that kind of, they're filling themselves up with all these things, filling that hole within from the external means, or they're actually taking this path of trying to figure things out. And it's just interesting to see who has and who hasn't kind of heard that inner call for truth, because realistically, we're all seeking this knowledge of self and knowledge of oneness. And I think that's why we're seeing the kind of progression of society shifting towards this more compassionate understanding of one another. I think we're going a little aggro of things, but I think the most important part here is just to recognize that it's like we're all the same essence and oneness. And I think when more people actually have that conscious recognition of that, I mean, I can only imagine a handful of people, how much that changes the room and how much of an environment that really creates when you're tapped into that type of understanding of life and yourself and reality. But imagine like a mass collective of people, imagine like 30, 40, 50, 60, 80% of the population having that experiential knowing of oneness. Like that completely transforms a society. So I think that's the thing here is like, how quick can it arise? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's some energetic ties with everyone, obviously, because everything is connected, everything is of the same energy in essence. But like, I feel like when we reach like a critical mass, right, of people uplifting their own beingness and quote unquote raising their own vibration, that it can almost trigger like this mass like aha moment for a bunch of people. And I think that's going to be the tumultuous crazy shit, because if that happens, then it's going to be like a bunch of people at once being like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like my identity of self just dropped away. What am I trying? I'm trying to freaking out, trying to cling to something, rather than embrace the oneness that you can experience. Like it's almost like everyone taking LSD or something, like in the water.
I almost think that's how like religion started in the first place, which is people like not like, what the fuck is this? And then, I don't know if you guys try not swear. I don't know.
Oh yeah, swear,
if there's any rules, Okay, yeah, and just like trying to deal with existence, and then someone's just like, hey, like there's a man in the sky, and like, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Just like trying to make sense of everything. And it's like, and I like talking about the search for truth, and it just made this spark in my head. Like, I wonder almost if it's not really that people don't value the truth. They might not acknowledge it, but I think people like almost always will. But it's almost like there's this battling urge to be right, to be right, and that your first perception of the world, and however that works out, and like when maybe when you grow into adulthood, how you come into that stage of your life viewing the world is like if that gets shaken, like it kind of destroys your whole perception of reality. right?
Mhm.
So, and that need to be right at like such a fundamental level of most humans is like battling with that, like that acceptance of truth, which I think most people would accept truth. It's just, sorry, my animals are over here. It's just like two opposing forces, you know, like the yin and
Yeah.
yang,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, because
But
when
yeah,
you
it's just
embrace
came to my
truth, you
head.
have to like surrender that always being rightness in your mind. It's like you know, maybe somebody else is right. Maybe I'm not always right. Maybe I don't know everything. That's just the ego. Because the more that you express other people also are here in their conscious beings, that lessens your egoistic self a little bit more, you know? It's kind of what you just described.
Yeah, well, it's a little like I guess how would you say it? It's just kind of strange because yes, like you can acknowledge truth on the larger level, but then also like if we're working in the world, you need your ego a little bit. You need to
Yeah.
be able to like pay for groceries and interact with other people. So having that ability is good, but and then like I don't know, I kind of lost my thread, but just like working in that framework, but also detaching from it to where you can see the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I forgot where it tied in. I just kind of lost it.
Well, I feel like it's just all about that personal identification, and in the search for truth, I think that's one of the kind of things the ego acts in that desperation mode, kind of, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's fighting for survival. I mean, always it's
Because the
the
truth is the
survival
ego doesn't
essence.
survive, isn't actually real.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
truth.
and that's the thing where it's just
That's
like
why you
this.
always have these opposing forces, because the ego is like, no, I exist. Look at me. I'm always right. Look how cool I am. And then the truth is like, no, you're not. It's just this force that keeps going back and forth in your being. And you got to check it, man.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in that because
Mhm.
I purely see the truth as the opposite of like the egoic kind of yearning to be correct. And I think that's one of the things that can help people kind of navigate the mind, is kind of pick up on the tendencies of what it expresses. And the egoic yearning is always like imagination, assumption, something fear-based. It's generally assuming that this truth is the reality based on its own limited understanding, despite there being like infinite amounts of variables. And the
Mhm.
truth is just that silent like knowing. It's very calm and quiet. It easily gets lost in the sauce, and that's where you get to that, like, where does the truth end and the imagination begin? And that's what I think is always crazy and trippy to kind of look at, is how many people's just like collective shells and like outer layers are just kind of falling away, and some of them it's forcibly, which has been very interesting just to see how or how poor people can cope and handle these types of like
Yeah.
emotional, energetic, mental changes, because it's a trippy thing to kind of wake up to. One day you realize like the job that you've been busting your ass for like 20 years, and the thing you went to school for like 10 more isn't what you want,
Mhm.
to get to the end of the line of like post retirement and being like, I was never really happy. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what makes me happy. Like, that's the
Mhm.
stuff that I think is going to be super hard for people to handle coming up. Cause I think that's just happening more and more and more, because we have this pause. We have this time where people are out of work. We have time where their normal routine of distraction is kind of taken away from them. And now it's this whole kind of game of me, myself, and I, and shit. Like, not many people are coped or will handle to cope with these types of situations of introspection. Because the truth, I mean,
Mhm.
everyone can handle the truth as I see it, but it's only when we're ready to hear it. Because regardless whether or not we hear it or not, like, it's if we can
Mm.
accept it. So
Yeah.
it's that point of maturity. That's why I think we're like teenagers kind of entering adulthood collectively, because you still have a lot of people hold on to that old childish bullshit, but you have a lot of us being like, we got to be accountable. We're adults. We're all one. We can do this. This is actually a pretty chill experience. Like, life is actually pretty dope and easy. We complicate the fuck out of it.
I don't know why that got me so good, but yeah, I
That's
love
funny,
that.
dude.
It's like, hey man, this is actually like pretty awesome. Yeah, just chill the fuck out.
Why do you think we don't have that viewpoint, man? Do you think we've just never been taught to be able to handle life in that way?
Oh, yeah, I'd probably say so.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to, it's kind of linked in with the being right thing, which links back to ego, but it's like yeah, I mean, the way that I don't know how old you are, Gary, but I assume we're
28.
of the same generation. Yeah. The way we were raised, and what was hammered into our heads was like, go to school, go to college or like a vocational school, get a job, save up and buy a house.
Yep. White picket fence, 2 dogs, kids.
Retire, and then it's like, because that's what was sold to our parents,
Yeah.
and they could do it much easier than we can, and it worked out. But when something comes along that messes with the system, or maybe it's the system messing with itself, I mean, who knows what's going on, but that whole way of like, the way that you were taught to interact in society and like to make a living, and what you value about yourself and your how you value success, that's all shaken up. And then it's like, I mean, how no one's ever gonna strictly sit you down in this society and tell you about ego death.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure that out on your own. You have to either take a drug or you have to go seek it out. And like, I mean, mostly Eastern like religion areas,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they deal with.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the disconnect between what we see as the human experience here in the West. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of people that are so caught up in the suffering that can be experienced in this world, and where people's perspectives kind of instantly gravitate towards, because realistically, like, all this is a game of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly see something and you're open to entertain it and you can experience it, then you can have that highest form of knowing, that experiential knowledge, and then you can't look back. But it has to be a willingness. And I think that's the thing that's hard for people with the truth, is that it takes courage and it takes love. And unfortunately, I think we're really low on both of those things, especially the love. Like, how many people actually practice in like daily self-love practices, where it's like you do something to really like spark and like your heart and make it smile, consciously putting that intention into it.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's the kind of depravity that our society is dealing with right now. Why so many people are handling this lockdown is either you kind of level up or you kind of like wind and spiral back down, where it takes that person to really see this as the opportunity versus the, oh, this is more chance to kind of just like get like super ripped and just play video games all day, versus I'm going to go on a walk like for 15 minutes a day. I'm going to do this, give myself like 5 minutes of yoga or something every day. Like, so it's just been interesting to see, because ultimately, I think more people are awakening to this kind of higher sense of self. I just don't think anyone, or I would say a good majority of people, just don't have the tools to really understand like what they're living through. I think that's kind of what we're going to see, is a lot of people like waking up, and we've probably seen a lot of people waking up with like mental health episodes and things that they just don't know what they're living through. But it's kind of like that mass energetic event where it's like they're just resonating right on the level, and like maybe their neighbor like awakened and had some crazy revelatory thought, and they're just like, and then they have this crazy download that just shatters their paradigm and they freak out, because they don't know what they're living through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen that within a few people, just in terms of realizations coming up, just like randomly or coincidentally. And it's just trippy to see, some people are really having a tough time with this whole identity falling away. And it's only going to get worse as I see it.
Yeah. So it's all perspective.
Always. I mean, it's either a blessing or a curse. It's either to you or for you. And it's those subtleties that drastically change the way you perceive life. Like, for example, one of the things that I remember I worked on in my early 20s was because my parents used to always yell at people in the car, like, oh, you're cutting me off, blah, 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 that type of road ragey stuff. And for myself, it was seeing that initial reaction of wanting to get kind of fiery, and then consciously telling myself things like, I'm very grateful they didn't hit me. I hope that they have a safe trip back to their destination, or I hope they don't hit someone, that type of thing, like giving them a blessing. And it's trippy just to see like how much that changes the energy of things. So it's just like, it's the subtle patterns like that we can kind of change and operate about ourselves, that can yield like real life, practical, experiential, like knowings of like, oh, wow, like that was an old thing. That's not me. And that's not actually, it's actually a lot harder for me to go out of that, like, into that aggressional state than it is just to be like, cool, grateful to be here. And then move on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen that within a few people, just in terms of realizations coming up, just like randomly or coincidentally. And it's those subtleties that drastically change the way you perceive life. And it's
Mm. Yeah, right. So it's how we react to things that happen to us that
Oh, yeah.
aren't of our own accord. That's kind of like a matter of perspective, would you say? Like changing how we react to situations.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things, kind of like wind out and play out coming up in these next few months, just because I know we're going to be dealing with a lot of shortages and, supply chain stuff's already kind of hitting, everywhere globally. And with just how much society shit the bed with the whole toilet paper challenge, uh, I think we had a real opportunity to be civil about that, but
Dude,
you see, you see people buy it, hoarding toilet paper, like selling it for like $100 a thing.
it's still, they can still never keep the toilet paper stocked. Like there's always space on, I don't know about you guys, but like we're around us in Portland, it's like they can never seem to get enough to where it's back to how it used to be, where it would always be stocked in that aisle. There's always signs up like, I mean, you can always find some now, but it's just strange to me that they
one per person.
Yeah, like did we stop cutting down as many trees? Like what's happening here? Like I don't know. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go keep going, Peter.
Oh dude, it's in the flow. Go with it. I'm cool. We're good.
But yes, the system, I mean, I don't see that there's much that they can do about it right now. I mean, they have royally screwed themselves. And I mean, kind of takes me to think about crypto, because that's essentially why I got in, was because, and I think why a lot of the people that I talk to that are around our age have been getting into it is because like, oh, like you're like, yeah, the government is definitely screwing things up. Not only just with like policies and stuff like that, but just the basic fact of money, and that led me into crypto. And I mean, the way that things are going, I mean, we have the debt ceiling crisis, and they're still trying to print money. It's just like, I don't know what they're going to do, because if they keep printing money,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's going to crash. Like things are going to crash. It's going to hyperinflate the stock market.
I mean, that's what I think is kind of the plan, though, in terms of I don't know. We always see all these things. The Great Reset. The Great Reset. I don't think it's going to go as like dystopian as some people think it's going to. I think it may look like that for a period of time for some people, but I think that's the kind of forced hand that life has kind of presented everybody. Is like, it's time to put up or shut up. It's like, if you're going to do a fiat thing, you might as well do something that the people can do. And I think that's the trippy thing about cryptos, and just seeing the kind of US oil dollar fall is, I mean, we're witnessing it. Like they printed off like 90% of the money in circulation within these like past like year.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely terrifying, so it's like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, as I see it. I don't see it lasting another few months. Like,
yeah.
In the holiday season, like, come on, like I think this is going to be one of the most expensive like holiday seasons for groceries ever. Because
I think it could like last until 2022. I think that the holiday season might prop things up on their legs. With
a slight pump,
but they've just printed too much money. I think. I mean, when you have like, I'm pretty sure even Warren Buffett has said that the stock market is overbought. It's not necessarily that it's going to crash 80% like the crypto market will, but it could crash enough to where it totally disrupts people's incomes and plans for the future, and just like hysteria, that people would pull out and then try to get their money from the banks, and the banks are like, oh, have you, like, we've been doing fractional reserve lending. Like, we don't have your money. Like, there's no money here. There's actually zero money in the bank.
Right.
There's 0% of the money that we loan out now in our bank. Like, we're just an office, and
it doesn't actually exist.
That's how we really could break it, technically, is if we all wanted to go withdraw money.
Right.
And then just like
let's all do that.
System. Yeah. I mean, that could be a form of protest that globally we could do, but I don't know. I think that's the trippy thing about cryptos, though, is like we become the banks. that's the biggest revelation and realization for me is like once I understood the concept of like what's the real end game here. Oh, everyone's their own bank. You don't have to deal with banks anymore. You're like, oh, okay.
It's a whole
No
new
more
system.
middleman. Straight up to the vendor.
Yeah,
You know?
it's funny when people say that fiat currency is realer than cryptocurrency when it's actually it's the total opposite, man. It's like a blockchain technology brings a legitimacy to our money system. Like it actually creates a new system, literally. Like the system we were just talking about. This is like, oh, we're just gonna do our own thing. It's like a whole brand new independent system from any of the past hundreds of year old monetary systems that we're still living in. You know, it's pretty wild.
Well, I think what the misunderstanding comes from is because it's hard for people to think about, like, you're essentially telling someone that, like, hey, I have this video game and like you can buy into this weapon and this weapon is going to be worth $100,000. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's a scam. It's like, no, but there's only 100 of these weapons in the game. So the price is just going to go up. And they're just like, doesn't make sense. I'll keep my cash. It's like, yeah, your cash isn't based on anything. It's just guns, the military, and the government. And they're like, you're playing a video game, man. Like it's digital and it's completely brand new, really. I mean, what it's like, 12 years old at this point. It's something that I think it's going to take a while for people to get their minds around as a whole. But the mass adoption is already starting. I mean, today the first Bitcoin ETF was
I saw that got approved.
Was approved earlier today. So and that's just like the first one. Like there's going to be, there's a few of them up for application, and like this thing's just going to explode.
It's just going to explode, bro.
Yeah.
It's just going to explode.
It's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth in history for like, I think the younger generation entering into like the elite status. Because again, it's like really led by, and it's funny when you look at certain cryptos, you can see that it's like a lot more consciousness focused people or a lot more self-aware individuals that are invested into cryptos. And I think it's because of that forward recognition that it's like, yo, this is literally like our version of the internet boom. Like when we were little kids getting those AOL discs, hearing all that dial up, and all these old money. And these people are freaking out, like being like, oh, this .com thing, and people getting, buying Amazon and Google stocks at the pennies.
It's
this
even bigger
is the
than
equivalent.
that, though.
Exactly, because this is like literally unlocking all of the money in the world. And it's fascinating when you think about like just the time aspect, because it's like the bank Swift money system, 3 days, 5 days to process stuff. Like I think I was listening to a Brad Garlinghouse interview and he was talking about it. He's like, right now it's currently faster for me to fly like to the East Coast to West Coast to deliver like $15,000 in cash than it is to wire transfer it. And he's just like, that's ridiculous. And I'm just like, I agree with that. When you can do something in 3 seconds, 4 seconds, like that's incredibly powerful. And like what Elijah was saying in terms of a lot of the corridors have already started to open. Yeah, this has been tested thoroughly in like Southeast Asia and like African countries going like that have people migrating to Europe for work and sending money back home. Like this is the system that is going to just unlock so much money and liquidation for people that we're never going to be able to see anything like this in our lifetimes, because I think it's just going to skyrocket from here, just like how instantaneous like purchasing and kind of like trade will be. But this is bananas. Like
it's bananas. It's absolute bananas.
Yeah. Have you guys listened to the Saylor series podcast at all? It's actually, well, Michael Saylor is on this guy's podcast called What is Money is actually the podcast, but he does a series of interviews with Michael Saylor. Recommend it to everyone, even if you don't get into crypto. Like it's just really good information. The dude apparently knows everything about human history. He's just like an almanac. But one of the things that really struck me from that is that even if you understand Bitcoin, like I don't think anyone can truly understand the implications and the possible effects that will be in play, like that will occur, because the human race has just never had a money like this. Like there's even with gold, if you had gold coins, there was always some gold mine that you could go to, and like there a limited supply of gold mines. Some of them are harder to get to, so gold becomes more expensive. But gold is still a limited supply, but not finite.
Mm-hmm.
Cryptos, the strongest cryptos to me, and this, we don't have to go too in depth into each cryptos and stuff, but if you're trying to store value and beat out inflation, they have a finite supply, right? So I just natively go back to talking about Bitcoin, but there's plenty of them out there. But there's just never been a money like that that's secure enough to, handle all the transactions in the world. And you have faster ones, there's faster ones out there that do the same thing with a finite supply. But there's just no way to tell how that's gonna,
Yeah.
Like it could essentially just topple the entire way that we do things and have our government set up, really.
Oh, it's gonna.
Well,
Sure.
it's the sense that it is built in such a way that it really does empower the people. And when you have an entire populace empowered with their own, income, their own means of, and access to their money, you're not seeing what's happening nowadays. And it's like, regardless of what side of, the political wheel people are on, wherever they find themselves laying at, it's important to recognize that, like, just the aspect of censorship, where like, just because you think differently, that a bank can like take away their right, your right to like finances and like literally lock you out of accounts, like that should be absolutely terrifying for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, because we become so like polarized in a lot of ways. People are very, desensitized and, dehumanizing a lot of individuals. But it just comes back to that recognition that, we're now entering an era of, and it sounds super woo, right? The era of the age of Aquarius, man. And it's all about, but it is all about truth and accountability and knowledge and wisdom. And that's the thing here, where it's like, you cannot own crypto unless you have like an ounce of like responsibility and accountability, so you don't lose your shit. Like, so you have to think about that, where it's like, naturally, just by the means of the technology, you're already kind of raising the maturity level of people to be more personally accountable and self-aware.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's like a subtle aspect of like this great twist and change and transformation that we're going to start to see when this stuff gets implemented. It's just like, yo, like, yeah, you're going to have an app, you're gonna have your passcode, but like, to be able to jump from device to device and do things across the globe, like, you're going to have your key phrases and your passcodes, and you're going to have like those types of, pieces of information at hand and ready. So you're going to have to be tactful and, means of being sneaky and hiding things and not losing shit, so
you actually have to think a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, opposed to just bank, take my money, I don't even think about it once it's gone.
Yeah. I still think there'll be like a transition period, which is currently what we're living in, where there'll still be people that want money there to have a custodial overseer like a bank, because people don't really want to care about that stuff. But if you want to, you can take the initiative yourself and become your own entity and do everything that a bank does better, actually.
Right.
And it's just a matter of knowledge. It's just a matter if you want to take the time to learn about this new frontier, or if you just want to stay in the old system, in the old ways. And this is right now what we're living through is the transitory period before we get to, I was going to say we get to the whole world like that, but I think there will always be, unless the system topples and we have no other choice, I think there will always be some kind of people taking care of people's money. I don't think because people have the power to be independent, they're going to be, but if you do choose to be, you'll have more flexibility with your money, and you can, your money will go further and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like what you said, that if you want to, like, just to have the choice, like I would probably sleep safer at night if I had everything in Coinbase Vault, something like that. But I personally like the idea of me having the custodial right to my money, and who knows what they're going to do with it behind bars. So I keep it, I manage it. It's not going to be like that for everyone, especially people who aren't as tech savvy, which is like there are some barriers to crypto, and
Right.
I think it's easy for like people who really understand it to kind of overlook it. Even just the simple fact of logging onto a website, giving a website your like social security number, and like so they can verify that you're a citizen,
Yeah,
and
right.
that you could be banking or transfer money in from your bank. It's all things that it stops people from doing it.
Makes them very uncomfortable.
Yeah, even though they already bank online, and like they they already do
It's
a
just
bunch
fear of the
of.
unknown. Like you said, this is a whole new thing. We never have had anything like this before. So it's understandable why, my
Yeah,
70-year-old grandmother doesn't understand Bitcoin.
and maybe they don't have to. Maybe the point
Yeah,
is kind of. I mean, if you think about it, like when is the last Bitcoin supposed to be made? I don't even know. I don't know that off the
it's
top
like
of my head.
100 years from now.
It's a long time, and
Yeah.
I think the end game for at least Bitcoin, it's not the entire, because the entire crypto economy, as I see it, is you have really like Bitcoin is going to be, in my opinion, like the store of value. It's kind of just going to be a bank. Like if you have Bitcoin,
Yep.
you're going to have a bank account, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's way too expensive to do any type of realistic transaction. Same thing
Yeah.
as currently, it's same thing with Ethereum though. Super expensive just to do transactions. So it's like they got,
Yeah. Well, and even like you don't need to add a Lightning network around the side. Like I'm just going to use like one of these faster coins. I'm just going to take the Bitcoin and buy this other thing and use that as my transaction currency.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's going to be those, and then there's also going to be like Web 3.0, like the interwebs created on blockchain that are
Yeah.
more secure, faster, and just who knows what. I don't really know the possibilities there, but
That's the trippy part about everything here right now, as I feel like we're at this, I think of like the consciousness unfoldment and that search, and kind of how you reach this point where it's like steady growth, and all of a sudden you reach this just pivot where it just starts to go exponential growth, and things just kind of, as the inertia build, just more and more stuff just starts to strip away, to start getting lighter and going faster and faster.
Mhm.
We're going to reach the same thing with blockchain technology. I mean, I think that's the thing with, like, I look at technologies like Theta Coin and just like what they're building in terms of just like rivaling essentially like YouTube and live streaming and all this different like media platform entertainment. It's fascinating just to see. It's like, yeah, they could resolve the broadband issue, where it's like everyone really does truly handle a little bit of the load, and it's just like this collective net of like broadband network and just
Mhm.
connection, and everyone's just fire, and it's crazy just to see again, like even these technologies are built in an integrated way where it's everything's gearing towards interconnectedness. And
Mhm.
that's the reason why I think that's why it's important for young, and I mean, obviously this is not financial advice or any types of investment advice, but like, to really get ahead and get into cryptos now before it turns into what we're going to see. And it's going to be even greater than the dot-com boom. These things are going to blow up to like thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
potentially. I mean, everyone's always been pitching, $100,000 Bitcoin, and with how it's been pumping, it's like, yeah, I mean, we're still in a bull run as I see it. And I think that's the scary part, where it's like how many people are going to get caught up in like the wave of it going up, and
oh,
the inevitable
and this is the other thing is
like
that
that ice cream cone. That's all I'll say.
it's going to turn a lot of people off too, I think, because this is going to be insane. Like $100,000 for one Bitcoin is such a psychologically important, like it's such a huge number
Yeah, right.
for the
Mhm.
everyday person. And the FOMO is going to be, it's just going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be insane. Like people, you're going to be walking down the street, and if someone knows that you know about crypto, they're going to like want you to help them to get crypto,
Right? Hey, yo, give me some BTC.
and it's just, you got that BTC. But I think the important thing, like if I was going to tell someone right now, like, and this isn't advice, but if I was going to give someone advice, I would say put in like, I don't know, like put in something that you definitely can lose, because you very well might lose it. I mean, we're back at all-time highs. This thing is going to rip, and like Bitcoin 100,000 is not that. It's not that crazy. I mean,
It's not that far off.
if you've been following Bitcoin, it's not that crazy right now.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But for people mentally, that's like the closer it gets there, the more they're just gonna get in as quick as they can. But they don't know the crypto markets, so they might not know about 4-year cycles. They might not know about how much it can dip after that 4-year cycle, and that might turn a lot of people off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just kind of how stuff works.
It's interesting you say that.
Learning
though.
process.
Yeah.
The 4-year process, or the 4-year cycles. I think that's the area of life in which we're really entering the unknown. I think once this stuff starts getting more of that mainstream adoption, like, I mean, the fact, like, I always try to push people towards XRP just in terms of like the connections that they've already made and established, and like big network coins like that, where it's like they're actually solving problems, and like, everyone can hate on it all they want. I don't really care. When you just look at like who they're connected with, like our global monetary system is either going to be using R3, which is going to use XRP as their transaction coin, or their gateway, or their bridge portal coin, or they're going to use Swift, which is also going to have to use XRP.
I don't think you can hate on XRP anymore. I mean, right. like they're definitely they're not gonna lose that.
No.
Like it's.
I think they're going to be. Well, I think they're going to be the first one to get clarity because of it.
Maybe, but if they settle, which I've been listening to people talk about it, and the settlement is actually like a kind of a strategic move by the SEC. If they settle and don't have a verdict, then there is no precedent for other people. XRP is good. XRP's in the clear. And then XRP is going to pump like no other, because they have been held down the whole run. But
I'm pretty excited about that, by the way.
Yeah, if you're holding XRP, which I know you are, it's going to be wild. But
dude, I was pushing people when it was like 17 cents. I was like, get it before it starts pumping.
What is that building?
I'll pitch it in like an elevator pitch. So XRP is a technology that is very, essentially I like to think of it like a more efficient Bitcoin in terms of what Bitcoin could have been used for, in terms of, I mean, it's a subtle twist because it's not using a store of value. It's being the base coin to solve like the liquidation crisis, to be kind of like I guess we call it like a transaction-based currency or a bridge portal currency. So it'll literally be the portal between exchanging rates and exchanging national currencies and denominations.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they've set up this huge network that's where like Ripple, this is the whole thing about the lawsuit that a lot of people just don't really get. Like XRP is its own thing. Ripple is that's the company. XRP's made, it's its own thing. Ripple is like a tech company that just happens to use the token that some people that are a part of the company developed and made. But because of that, they started working with all these different banks and a lot of smaller banks too, and international groups. So like the entire Southeast Asian corridor of like Japan, Singapore, like in Korea, like they're all using XRP. I think there was something that just popped today where it was like London is going to be using like their central base digital currency is going to be used through the Ripple net, and like MasterCard is going to create like a deal with them. And that's the stuff for me where I was just like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff with crypto, but it's always trying to point people towards use case, where it's just like, if it doesn't have like a really cool use case, and then there's no point really investing in it, because you want to invest in the technology that's the future. Because like, I think one thing we haven't even talked about is like NFTs, and just like how crypto is going to change, and like blockchain rights, and just ownership to music. Just as like a creative artist, like being able to actually have the rights to your own materials versus record labels and all these other things, and be able to sell that and reproduce it. Oh, you have to pay a certain amount of this crypto to gain access to this file. It's trippy. Like it's definitely putting a lot of trust in the users, but with the technologies, it's so secure. You're not going to be able to like hack and steal shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like we're coming back to like the ultimate like respectable digital barter society.
Well, that sort of touches on, there were those 3 groups of coins, and where I think that is important to understand is that once the market matures and truly goes into mass adoption, and I believe Bitcoin volatility will be greatly reduced. You won't be able to make money off of Bitcoin. It's just like, I think it's just going to be the bank. It's just going to be a very stable store of your value. And then there's going to be like, it's sort of like the stock market, where it's just a company, and they have a token that's helping them complete some sort of end goal. And that's where, like, Theta has a great use case. There's like, I mean, I love VeChain, and what drew me into VeChain was there was no like, super crazy video that I watched. It was just like, oh, VeChain they're trying to use blockchain to solve supply chain problems. And I was like, I know that. I know supply chain. I kind of work with people in that industry, and I was just like, this makes sense. It's like, why would I not support this? It's just kind of like you're buying a stock, which is also where I think people get lost, because they just see it as crypto is just like this thing that you speculate on. More people buy in and it goes up. And there are coins like that. Like the meme coin craze is like, it's absurd to me, but I get it. But that is how a lot of people get in, Yeah. They buy these coins that just have zero use case really, but they're popular. So they pump, and you watch these things pump and you're just like, what is happening? And then you watch them drop and you're like, oh yeah. Okay.
You're just like, oh, exactly. And then you see all those greedy tears just like crushed. And it's why you got to lick the ice. I said it earlier. It's like, you got to lick the ice cream cone. Like, I think that's something for people is, you said it earlier, Elijah, where it's like, don't invest something that you're not willing to lose. Like, if you don't have a stomach for like wild highs and lows and like crazy like corrections, like crypto's not for you. With where it is right now, it's nowhere near the stability of like anything.
Yeah.
Like this.
But that's why you can make a lot of money if you invest in the technology and you have some kind of foresight, a little ounce of foresight of where the world's going or how systems can be better built, like supply chains, or banking can be better utilized. Whatever the utilization is of the coin, you can invest in that technology literally directly and reap the benefits of that. It's pretty cool. We're moving toward a world where there's going to be a bunch of different types of currency. There's not just going to be Bitcoin, even though some people believe that's a thing. There's going to be all different
people kinds. Believe that?
Yeah,
some maxis,
Bitcoin
dude.
maximalists.
They're super hardcore about that shit.
Well, I mean, I know. Oh, well, but they actually believe that like every crypto is just going to disappear and it's just going to be Bitcoin.
I don't know if it's just like a cultish echo chamber, and people just kind of go with the meme, or there are actual people. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there are actually people that are diehard just Bitcoin or nothing. I don't really know, to be honest. I think there is. There's probably a good amount of them out there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the supreme currency that everything needs to be based off this, or if it's not attached, it's going to be all. If they don't think everything's going to go away, they definitely think Bitcoin's going to be the centerpiece. Where it's like,
well, I think it is though. I think it is going to be. I guess I have the opinion where it's going to be like the one where everything else can be exchanged to that at the end goal. Like it's going to be even countries' currency. Even the US dollar will be. Like Bitcoin will be the father of them all in a way. It'll be this store of value, just an ultimate collective store of value that every human being with an internet connection and a smartphone can tap into. It's like the World Bank. It'll become. I see it. But
interesting.
Below that is other. Just because there's big banks doesn't mean there can't be smaller banks with different tools and different ways and different utilizations of the blockchain technology. But I think Bitcoin is just like the base father layer of them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's interesting, because you got to think like that. To me, kind of sounds like what is already happening in a lot of different cryptos, where it's staking, where it's just like now essentially you can be the bank that kind of leverages some of your money and allows people to do different transactions and things. And you kind of take a little bit of the profit and kind of keep feeding your coins in, whatever, to kind of keep this system moving. And I think that's probably how, if anything, we're like, I could see that fatherhead role for like BTC. And then having one of the kind of like quicker, more efficient, like XLM, XRP, algo, something like that, like do the transactions. I mean, like there's things like Flare Network, like there's so much different stuff that's coming out that's going to be utilizing like all these different cryptos to essentially be doing just that, like integrate all of them. So it doesn't really matter what you have, you're going to be able to like do some type of a transaction and have some type of intermediary like currency.
Flare, is that like DOT?
The Flare network?
Yeah, I haven't heard of Flare.
Oh, dude, yeah, you got to look into like the Flare network with like their Spark token. They have, I'm pretty sure they have like XLM, Shiba, or Dogecoin. They have, let me think, like definitely have XRP if I didn't already say that one. I think they have Ethereum. They pretty much have like all like the top like probably 20 tokens right now. And then some other smaller ones that it's like essentially it's that type of a network that's going to make things super efficient to do transactions on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, that's the stuff that trips me out about like cryptos is it's going to grow faster and faster and faster and faster. Yeah. And sooner or later, it's just going to be like, I don't even know what the future can hold with some of the crazy tech. Like it's just going to be instantaneous knowledge, like instantaneous transfers, like press a button, it's already there. Like that's already how efficient some of this stuff is.
It's just making our old systems obsolete just by design. It's just making everything better. It's actually making the world a better place. People think it's like the devil and like there's this there's a sentiment out there that it causes a huge amount of emissions and people just trying to get rich off it. It's like, nah, man, you don't understand. This technology is creating a system that is more efficient than any human being can be accountable for. You know, it's kind of like its own being. It's like its own entity that we're just like, we all agree on and it just works better. I'm talking about blockchain, like all of the different cryptocurrencies. It's it's amazing.
That energy FUD that they were trying to hammer in was really, I mean, it made sense at the way, like if you were trying to attack crypto, you attack Bitcoin because it's like the father and
it's the most inefficient one.
And it's the most inefficient one, but it's not that it's inefficient in terms of like time and energy, but that it makes it secure, you know, like,
yeah, it needs to be like that.
It's not that it's a detriment really, but the thing that people don't understand is that when you just say, oh, this network is using this much energy, you shouldn't use it because it's not green. Well, you're not comparing it to like the system we have in place. Like, can we make that comparison? Like what exactly? How much energy are you guys using?
Like, like all these banks and undersea cables and all this other crazy stuff.
Like you have to send out God knows how many trucks to take money from like central banks to subsidiary banks, from those banks to ATMs. Like there's no way that this electronic network, which is powered like a large in part by like renewable energies, there's no way that it would be more inefficient. You know, and it comes back to people not understanding, and you read a headline and part of the story, but you don't look into what is this technology exactly, and why does it take energy to use the network.
That is the energy. So this is what a lot of people that don't know what blockchain technology is. The actual energy that we're using with graphics cards is the energy of money. Like it's a better utilization of because money is energy. That's all it is. It's just us
transfer.
It's just a transfer of energy, and we just so happen to use paper at this point, or we use the fiat system. But it's still energy. Like it still encompasses something in the collective unconsciousness, right? So blockchain or mining through Bitcoin is that energy, but it's almost in a concrete form. Like almost, it's like not really like concrete like paper. It's actually better than that. It's actually the literal electrical energy that it takes to compute a block on the blockchain. That is the energy of secure money. You know, like there's no other way to be able to do that. Like that is literally the energy of money in that computational form. It's like, it's when you understand the energy of it, like you almost have to, in order to understand blockchain technology and why it's so important, you have to understand what money is at an energetic level. You know, you have to like disconnect yourself from the idea that it's just like a piece of paper and we think it has value. But when you think about like what money is, kind of like in a psychological level, it makes sense, you know?
Yeah, No, it totally does. And I just think like I was laughing super hard because when you're saying like the energy exchange, like it is the representation of the energy of the, of the money itself. Like, as above, so below. It's just like how we gain energy for ourselves and our muscles and our body itself is ATP. We strip energy away. Yeah. And that's another next level aspect of it being kind of more of the true natural evolution of where we could go with a whole fiat currency. Because I mean, ultimately, I hope we get to a point of Star Trek where everything can just be made, and we don't need to have things like currency. And we are that evolved consciousness wise that we don't care about that type of competition. We're all about uplifting everyone before we try to really take on the next challenge. Ideally, that's like Star Trek world, right? That utopia. But I think crypto is the closest thing that gets you to a world like that with where we're going, because it's going to start making things so much more efficient. When you think about how much stuff in terms of just like cost and fees of just different products and foods are impacted by the whole bank financial aspect and, certain charging fees, all the transaction fees, like when your transaction fees negligible, when you can literally just like transfer money on a massive scale, like billions of dollars to people in an instant, and then they can do another transaction. It's going to start to open up so much more potential growth of just like not only like the global economy, but the individual kind of like entrepreneurial aspect. Because it's like, can you imagine now like just being able to be like, oh hey, it's like Venmo on steroids. It's like, everything's gonna be the QR code where it's just like, oh yeah, this you can exchange money within like a minute or two between people across the globe. And that's the aspect of interconnectedness that I think we're going to be getting to. And when we think about it in that energy exchange, I think it's going to drastically change the way we even think about purchases. I mean, we're already pretty desensitized to like pressing buttons. Like, I think that's the thing now where it's going to be so much of a new kind of, you're going to have to live responsibly as fuck, because like you're going to be able to press a button and you're going to be able to buy whatever you want that. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's already on the way. Like that's the types of automation and system that we're entering into, where it's like, you're going to have to be a lot more conscious with how you use it, because there is going to be such an avenue of abuse, just as much as it's opening up an opportunity for like connectedness across the world, from the small village to like the city life across the continent. You have just as much of a vice for someone to just gamble away everything even faster. So I don't know. That's the thing. It's energy. It's the energy exchange is interesting aspect to it, though. I like that
for sure, man.
It's funny you brought up Star Trek, because that when I first got into crypto, the easiest way that I would like explain to people why I was so into it and like studying it so much and stuff and so passionate about it was just like, if you think about like Star Trek, and like how advanced that like version of us is in that universe, like they're not handing out money, like they're not using paper money. They have like credits or something, like Starfleet credits or something. I don't know what they use, but the point is that like you would never imagine a society that can like transport solid matter through the air onto a planet, from their ship using like a credit card or like a bank. It would just be like attached to like your ID badge, and everyone has a certain amount of credits that they earned, and like then you can transfer it anywhere. Like that just makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes sense, dude.
and then we're making this like, we're like forcing this archaic system that was necessary, to get us here. We're forcing it into like our digital progress. And that's, I think, where, and then the corruption was the big thing that, that really, I mean, honestly started the whole thing. Because if that housing crash and the market crash in 2008 didn't happen, I mean, who knows if Satoshi would have actually created Bitcoin, I mean, that was like the impetus for starting the project. But things happen how they did. But yeah, Star Trek is for some reason it's always been in my head as like, that is how like we would have money, there would be no bank. It would just be in some like in a blockchain.
Be like a part of you in a way. Like there'll be no custodial. That's what we're moving toward. It's like your value is like, it's attached to your being. There is no one else taking care of it, or at least if you want that. That's definitely the next state. Before we reach a state where there's no money, which I think we will eventually get to, heaven on earth. But I think until we get there, we have to utilize a better system of money, and that's 100%. It's cryptocurrency, man. Like it's just,
Facts.
there's no, at this point, like what do you think could turn you off about it? Because at this point, I just read the news stories like the energy consumption. I'm just like, there's another one. They're just trying to, like, it's just almost like people are trying to poke holes in this when it's like, it's something at this point, it's like, bro, you can't poke holes in this thing anymore. Like at this point, if you don't get it, you're just going to be left behind, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think would make you like, do you think, like, are you at this point, like, would you guys say cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is 100% part of our society now? Like there's no going back unless we have some kind of cataclysmic event, right?
I'm safe to say that. I think that there's no going back at this point. I think we're
I
critical mass.
I mean, I'm not going to say how much, but I'm definitely betting a lot on it. Like it just makes the most sense to me of how things would go. I mean, at least that it would be around, doesn't need to topple everything. I don't know if that needs to happen, but
that's an interesting point though, because like you look at the fact that, I don't know, I think it's pretty apparent that anyone who follows like finances or anything like that can say that, the US dollar is pretty rigged, in terms of the oil petrodollar, that, stock market, even cryptos in a lot of ways are pretty rigged. And,
it's literally rigged.
And the same thing goes to like the precious metals. I look at something like silver, and everyone's always like, whether people are about precious metals or not, like there's a logistical angle to it of the technologies that we're creating are all going to be very like platinum and silver based. And, they've already used a lot of gold, but like these metals are going to keep going away. And the fact that we're already having chip shortages and all these different precious metals and minerals are already kind of in decline because of, just with everything hitting with the lockdowns globally. We have to look at all aspects of the financial institutions and avenues are just going to start to crumble. And I think when we start to see like cryptos, eventually like the altcoin season is going to pump once Bitcoin hits its pump. And then from there, we'll really see what kind of like chaos and crazy shit's about to go down, because that's when I think the precious metals are going to start to pump. Because at this point, it's going to be like the dollar's just going to be like, we don't know what to do. And it's just going to fall apart. And I think this is where cryptos and like the more traditional senses of like currency are going to start to step in and really just reclaim the new role that this kind of bullshit oil-based war dollar has been,
the oil-based war dollar.
Facts though, dude. Like,
that's what it's backed by.
Nixon was the one that got us off the gold standard. And if you look at what brought that event to happen, it's kind of like what's happening right now, but in reverse. So the only thing that we're waiting for right now would be some type of pop, some type of crash, and which would be likely triggered by some crazy inflationary supply chain event that just causes shit to go off the rockers, and then from there it's like, oh, what do we do with, all the dollar crashing and, bread going up to like $20 like olden times, the stock market's crashing, people are freaking out, like they're going to have to be like, oh, well, excuse me. I think this is where cryptos come in, where it's going to be like, oh, we've been ready for this one, folks. And all of a sudden you're going to see people who are invested in cryptos be not this hit. I still think we're going to reach a crazy event, kind of like the 08 recession and like bubble pop and like, real estate crash and all those stuff, because they kept doing the same stuff. But I think this is where we have a technology that can really pivot it and fully, because that's the opportunity that we didn't have last time. That's why you bring up Satoshi aspect of like making it after this event. I think that's why, if you think about like what 08, like 09, I think like a lot of stuff started getting going in like what 2012 was when a lot of crypto started to really pump and push, or like 2014. And I think that's kind of been like the incubation period where we're waiting for some type of event to be the justification just to finally leave this old bullshit and be like, hey, all these different cryptos will work. But that's why I think this SEC lawsuit is so important, because that's the one thing that at least I know now, they've gone on record to say it, but like Brad Garlinghouse was talking about how, they're not going to settle until there's some type of regulatory clarity on XRP. And if that's truly where he's, stacking his chips, then that's dope, because until there's clarity, the entire crypto market is up in the air right now. But I just have a feeling like SEC is going to lose this, and it's going to be pretty transformative for the whole space.
Could be. I think they're it depends on what the SEC wants to do, really. I mean, you had, I think, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but Coinbase came out they've been advocating for regulation pretty much for the same purpose. So XRP could be that lawsuit that they decide to make that like this. Okay, this is the time that we're going to do this. They could also just drag it on and wait till they'll settle because they want to do it to another crypto. Like they can keep going crypto to crypto, project to project, exploiting the devs and the companies because they never set the precedent, right? So I'm not as hopeful that they're going to come out the other side with like a final verdict, but I definitely think XRP is going to be fine. Like if they were going to lose, it would have been months ago. I think. I mean, it's clear that the whole thing has been dragged out and just a sham, really. I mean,
it's going to be glorious, dude.
Yeah,
I'm so stoked for this. Well, I think it's already been vindicated in a lot of ways, just because of all the stuff that keeps coming out. You see all like the insider trading with the SEC and just the sketchy stuff, and then meet with the different companies, like, you know, for who's making ICOs and who's a security, who's not. Like, but I also think that that's kind of the reason why I'm so like jazzed up about it is because I see all of this, like take a step back, right? Take a step back to the step back. And you look at the totality of it, we're seeing all of these institutions and systems start to fall and crumble. And just to show that when they're really tested, they don't work. Like even from like our transcontinental shipping, you know, we look at how many like, you know, just tankers and things are just sitting out at sea chilling. How much our supply chain's already messed up just because, you know, we're so efficient that if we're off like a week and a half, 2 weeks, like we can cover in a margin of error for like a week and a half, 2 week delay, but 3 weeks, 2 weeks and 3 days, your whole product's going rotten. Like we're seeing a lot of that type of stuff happening in produce. But I think that's the thing right there though, is it brings us to this point where society as a tipping point is pushing towards this. We need a new system. And I think this is where cryptos, automation, all these different things are coming into play. Like, I don't want to say it's going to be a seamless transition. I think it's going to be a little rocky, but I think we're already at that point where the baton's getting passed. You know, there's been moments where it's hit the finger and you're still in the lane, just waiting to get the stick. You're like, come on, pass the baton. Let's go. Like we're right there though. Like I don't see, and just energetic feeling too. Like there's so much stuff going on. I feel like we're about to pop. Like I feel like it's about to happen.
Do you guys still think there's going to be a huge bear correction after the blow off? Or I mean, even if it's not a blow off top, like 100K around that area.
Yeah, I think so. I think there always will be until we reach a point where a good majority of the world is involved in it, because it's still so that just happens. Like it kind of goes like this. Bitcoin goes like this. But it ultimately goes up over time, right? It's just dip and then pump. But I think those are going to become smaller and smaller as more people get into it, because this is what happens. We go through a FOMO phase where everyone just puts their money in because they see that it's made a lot of money in the past days. So like, oh, maybe I can make some quick money. So it's just like a FOMO phase. People don't know too much about it. And then all of a sudden people that have been in it for years decide to make a little bit of money and they sell, and the people that put their money in, tried to make a quick buck, are also selling at the same time. And then that makes a bear market, right? And then all of a sudden, some good news stories come out, some new developments come out of the technology, people start to invest, and then it just creates another cycle. And, you know, FOMO kicks in, and then boom, the same thing. It's just the learning process of getting into cryptocurrency at this point, you know, because it just stems from us wanting to make a little bit more money. And then you try to do it when shit's good. So you put your money in, but then people like us that have been in it for, I don't know how long you guys, but like for a few years, say, all right, well, I can sell right now and buy a house or buy a jet ski or whatever. You know, you could do that. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of people during bull runs, as they call it. And people sell, and some people stay, some people go. But the ones that stay, maybe they learn a little bit more, and they learn how cryptocurrency markets work. And thus you benefit from the system that we're creating. So it's just a matter of psychology. I think in psychology of people just learning how these markets are developing, you know? So it's always going to be, I think right now though is really unprecedented. I think this is going to be like the FOMO phase that we've never seen before, ever. Just because like all the shit's going on in the world and you got all these new developments, and Vladimir Putin said, yeah, cryptocurrencies are cool. And El Salvador's mining on with volcanoes, they made it legal tender. The SEC said, yeah, cryptocurrencies are cool. So you got all this going on at the same time that the technology is also being developed. And if you've been paying attention to cryptocurrency, you already know it's going to be a thing. So you got all the new people coming in with all the news stories, and then you have people that know about it also investing, because I've definitely invested some money in the last month or two because I'm like, oh, shit's going to pop off. So
Yeah,
like
it's the last
you got
buying
that.
point.
Exactly. So you got the veterans doing it at this point, and then you got the new people, then you got even more new people building on that. And it's just like right now it's going to be insane, bro. Everything's just adding up. It's all like the stars are aligning for this whole Bitcoin cryptocurrency thing to pop off. Like this is just the beginning of it. If you look at a chart right now and you see what it's shaped like, it's like this. And it's like just the beginning of this.
Yeah.
So once like everyone thought it was going, that it was over, and then it's like it's clear that it was a when in doubt zoom out moment. It's like, dude, this thing is going to rocket. Like it was like a spring. Like that run to 60 was just like the first part. It's just insane to think about because that was such a crazy time too.
Yeah. Went from like almost 32 straight up to like 64 within like a matter of like a week or so.
And the stories, it was just, Elon Musk was like getting into, he was like into it for a little bit, and then he got into the energy FUD. It was just all this crazy stuff. But yeah, I guess the reason why I asked is just because like the whole baton thing, I guess this is a personal thing of like when it's truly adopted, I don't think the crash, like you won't be able to do what you could possibly do now, right? Which is like, say you bought like, the dip was at like 30, like 28 to 30, something like that, depending on where you set limits and stuff. But you couldn't take like a dip and then ride it to 100 and like, and potentially 4 or 5x, at least off of Bitcoin, right? I still think there's going to be like the stock market aspect of coins, but Bitcoin controls the whole market kind of. So, but I don't think once everything's adopted that you'll be able to like take that investment, ride it up, sell, watch it crash, and then buy back in and kind of, profit off of that. I think it'd be more it would probably look more like an accumulation phase, which is just like sideways movement with some ups and downs, but it's relative. Like you wouldn't be able to just hodl. Like you'd probably have to day trade, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the interesting aspect too, because I think when it does get to that point, every coin's going to have its own ecosystem. I mean, obviously there's going to be integrated ecosystems, but that's where you come back to that point where it's like whatever coin's kind of the more popular in your area. Because see, I think I'm a little bit more, I don't want to say like, I'm thinking more outside like the American paradigm, but like cryptos are already pretty utilized globally. I'd say compared to America, we're kind of like in the last leg of it. Like I'd say definitely in Asia and the European countries, it's been getting utilized more and more. And that's the stuff for me that's actually really interesting just to see, because it's like, are we going to be like, I feel like we're America, we're just like the slow like cousin, where it's just like everyone globally is just like already been using it. And they're like, come on, bro. Like, what are you guys doing over there? We're like, what's this? We're still fighting regulation, but it's just like, all these casinos out in Singapore are using it. All, you know what I mean? Like,
you want to know why, dude? Because the world is based on the US dollar. But when this thing is literally threatening the power of the US dollar, the powers that be don't want to recognize that.
We're seeing it. Them talking hella smack towards crypto and trying to be like all this regulatory nonsense. It's just like, dude, yeah, like you can see that the big money is that it's at play is they're the ones that are really trying to distract probably the most opportunistic land to capitalize on the crypto boom, as I see it.
Like, did you guys see that story about Coinbase starting their lend program?
Yeah.
And then the SEC came in and told them that they would sue them if they went ahead with their lend program, which for people that don't know is just like, you could basically just put your crypto, it's basically like staking, but you could just put it on Coinbase and then people, you stake it for a certain amount of time and you're basically leaving money in the bank and then you're getting an APY, right, on your savings. they were going to give 4%, which is in the crypto space, like not really like great, like for staking, you know, it's like, it's okay. It's like not super crazy. But when you compare that to bonds, which is like what's a bond right now? Like 1 point something, like it's
Not
really,
4%.
it's definitely not 4%. And the SEC, like to me, that was just a message. It's like the SEC was like, hey man, like we're not letting you give people a better percentage than like our moneymaker, you know, or like one of our money makers. You can't even you can't get that at the bank. You can't get that with a bond. Like you have to risk it in the stock market. And I think it was a clear message, you know, and if you know about money and like how it all works, clear like fear and clutch for power, you know, just like
100%.
Like we can't let you do this, so we're going to sue you. Like,
it doesn't make any sense because like there's other platforms that do that stuff with DeFi, and you can lend your money or you can borrow money through this protocol, through this program. And I think for some reason Coinbase, what are you gonna say?
I think the difference is that Coinbase is a publicly traded company. So like,
no.
So do you know like how much that would actually give credit to things like DeFi, where it's like,
oh my God,
if Coinbase were to go ahead with lend and then the word got out that, hey man, you don't need to buy bonds. You probably shouldn't leave your money in a bank. You should probably just give it to Coinbase. They'll lend out your money to people and you'll get a cut of the profit, you know?
That'd be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. And so they were basically coming out with a product that potentially could have killed the entire like savings and bond market, you know? And when it's a publicly traded company, I don't think they could let that go through.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they'll work with them to like, they'll probably have to lower the APY though, I would assume, because that's how I saw it, at least, you know, it was just like a threat to that.
Well, then again, you start to get into the SEC's overreach as I see it, you know, and that's a very big thing where it's just like, they're supposed to be protecting the investor. That doesn't really sound like there doesn't really get a more investor friendly setup than that. And that's where it comes into the point of like who they really work for and this whole aspect of corruption that's getting revealed. And that's why I think it's so great. You know, we're coming to this era of truth where a lot of these old, just blatant corrupt systems are getting revealed just through the kind of, you know, things like all eyes on this SEC case, all eyes on how trade and the economy is moving and how trade is going. Like, I think this is the time now more than ever where we're going to start to see people being consciously like involved and engaged in shafting the man, which I think we all kind of saw with like all the Reddit stuff, like Wall Street Bets and things. And I know that was, to me personally, I think the media I know the media overblew a lot of that stuff out of proportion and made it seem like it was this huge racket and scheme. But to me, it was just a small scale example of like, okay, well, if we all want to play the game like they play the game, they have to cheat. And it's a whole lot more blatant and really just fraudulent than anything we could ever do. And I think that's the whole Robinhood stuff that got revealed. Is like, oh my gosh, all these different corporations and institutions are all in on it and they're all covering for each other so they can lie and get out of trouble because they just shafted entire people and screwed them over on like a few stock sales, you know, like when GameStop and AMC were going through the roof. Well, you know, so that's the thing right there where it's like people are starting to see how just how corrupt these institutions and systems really are, that it's making even that much more of a push for this whole crypto DeFi market. Like DeFi is its own avenue that we haven't really gotten into, because that's like, that completely is like empowering the people, destroying the banks, which is also why I think the whole CBDC thing is kind of like sketch. Cause I'm like, no, I don't, you guys are going to get phased out naturally. I don't know why you're even trying.
Don't even try. It doesn't work like that. You can't just build a blockchain like that, banks. You can't just do that. It's not that simple, or at least they could. Actually, it's going to happen. They're going to build these things that are, you know, central bank digital currencies, and people are going to use them. But there's always going to be the better alternative of doing it your own way. You're always going to get. It's just going to be easier. It's going to be more private, and you're going to, if you want to use DeFi, you're going to be able to get more money back, you know, from the money that you keep there. Or however you want to use DeFi. There's a lot of different ways, but in the simple way that we were talking about before, with borrowing and lending, it just, like you said, it empowers us to be able to utilize our own money and make it work for us again, because that's what banks were also supposed to be able to do. You know, you put your money into a bank and you keep it here, we'll look after it and we'll give you a certain cut because, we appreciate your business. You're helping us build the bank. But now there's not even any value in that anymore. There's no logical reason why anybody should hold cash in a bank. Just learn a little bit more about cryptocurrency and you'll earn way more than you could ever earn on your cash. It just makes sense, man. It's putting them out of not out of reach, but like out of a person's way of making money, like it's making it more efficient on how we build the savings and build value for ourselves. It's amazing.
I like that.
Just simple staking, bro. That's it.
Well, and that's the avenue that's going to be even more crazy is because, think about it like, I just think about it like what can easily evolve from this is you now have group staking where you and some friends can really go all in and be like, hey, you guys want to like stake like 30% of our bags and be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's create a joint stake fund. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things that are going to be opening up, and that's not even diving into the intellectual property aspects where people can start to do their own entrepreneurship like that much easier because it's going to be your own brand. It's your own art. Like, and I think that's I always like to bring it back to the aspect of how it's going to impact our consciousness. But if you have that much money at a whim and you can create NFTs and all these different, GIFs and whatever memes you want to do and sell those to people all over the world. And unlike the stock exchange, the crypto markets, the exchanges on there, they don't sleep. So you have 24-hour trade, 24/7, 365 days a year of people being able to hustle and create stuff. Like that's a whole avenue of like opening up the door that some people aren't even aware of. That's can really change people's lives. I mean, obviously they have to have like a computer to do stuff, but I think that's with the smartphone integration with everything nowadays, like people are gonna be able to make like crazy profound pieces of art. Like the way I see it is like, okay, so there's gonna be a system update for Apple and Android that one day you're going to take a picture and you can edit it and do all the cool little stuff in the app, and then you'll be able to sell that as an NFT. Or like a boomerang, you can literally record that little 6-second clip and then turn that into an NFT and just like upload it to the marketplace, and someone will be like, oh yeah, cool, like
like more
someone's spinning fire. Yeah, where it's going to be like literally anyone can do it. So, and this is
Coinbase is coming out with Coinbase NFT, so that might be the start of it.
Yeah, that's going to launch. That's going to be crazy too.
It's all this. I mean, I saw it with like sports where you see different professional athletes like Gronk putting out little clips of himself and people can own that or own little pictures of him. And it's just like, and stuff was selling for like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I think it will hit a point where people are the market's going to flood. I mean, it's already kind of flooded, but it's going to reach a point where, I mean, it's cool. You could like take a boomerang and sell it, but there's going to be like millions of them and people are just going to be like, wow. Yeah, I don't want to buy that anymore,
bro. It's just like regular art, bro.
But exactly,
everybody can draw stick figures, but not everybody's gonna buy my stick figure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's there will be some mind-blowing boomerangs in the future, I'm sure.
Kaleidoscope ones and all this trippy stuff.
But the Coinbase, that one's crazy. The Coinbase NFT market is already the largest NFT market. Just it's not even open yet. It's just like so many people have already signed up on the waiting list.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Because they have so many users. Like, yeah, that's going to be wild. I mean, NFTs, it's always kind of interesting too, because, gaming and
that's where it's going to get huge.
Gaming has traditionally like led a lot of technology development and like adaptations of things. And I think, gaming, especially for like our generation, but more so for like the younger kids, they're gonna, it's not gonna be a question to them. Oh, why an NFT is valuable, or why crypto makes sense. Because
they're trading cards. It's their Pokemon cards.
Yeah, dude, the weapon, just bringing it back around, the weapon that there's only 100 of, like this has value outside of the fact that like, that it's just a thing in a game. Like if you want this weapon, you have to pay me, God knows how many XRP.
20 Ethereum.
Yeah. But I think it'll get to that point where it might just be a waiting game, you know? Like, I mean, we're in this I think we're in a crazy period where we might look back and just be like, wow, like we were around for that time and we saw the beginning.
I will clarify that statement. When we're all hanging out on our islands, drinking fresh coconut and pineapple juice.
Yeah.
We're going to be like, can you imagine the days back when we were a little
Hey, we got it recorded. You can watch the video back.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the facts though. Like, but again, like that's the opportunity that I really hope people can see is that crypto's on its very fundamental, like basic level is you're buying kind of something that can be akin to like a stock, but in truth, like a lot of the ones that we've been talking about, it's like you're buying a technology that is going to be the root and foundation of like the new internet,
the metaverse.
Yeah, dude, this is like where we get into like the quantum realm of
this
technology.
is where we go into singularity. This is like crypto is more than just being able to send some money. Like, no, we're going into the matrix, bro. All right. This is like taking us into a whole different world on a consciousness level, especially for people, like you said, that are growing up into it. They're not going to know any different. Like you said, they're Pokemon cards, bro. I love Pokemon cards. This is Pokemon cards on steroids, dude.
Yeah. They need their NFT on their smartphone, and if they don't get it, they're going to be like, oh, you're not the cool kid that didn't get the limited edition NFT.
Yeah. And it's based upon money, like value, like almost like your value. It's like, oh man, there's so many layers to cryptocurrency. Like this is a whole other layer than Bitcoin from what we were talking about before. This is like translating into like almost like a certain sense of value, owning certain NFTs. And it's also like your bank, not your bank account, but it kind of is, but it's almost like an investment is what I'm trying to say. It's a really trippy thing to wrap your head around, but it's transforming our consciousness. It really is, man.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when you relate it, Pokemon cards is like funny, but it's also very true. Like, you remember like having a Pokemon, like just wanting to get Pokemon cards and stuff. And then I remember my parents just like, why do you want these cards? Like, these are just cards. Like, and they don't understand it, but you're a kid and they're like, okay, we'll buy them for you. And then you get these cards and it's like, you want it because like if everyone's doing it, it's like a cool thing. And you love fucking Pokemon. Like Pokemon are kick-ass creatures. You want to live in the Pokemon world. And then eventually, like you have your cards, and then you realize, like, oh, dude, this Charizard is worth like $500. Oh. Like, not because there's any like use case thing. Like it can't do anything other than looking and like being badass, Yeah. And the value, like it's like human value. It's like it's weird because it's such a deep concept.
Yeah, right.
In a Pokemon card or an NFT, it's like, what is value? Like, why do we value things, and what does that mean that we will pay X amount of whatever for something that won't really provide any value, And why do we value those things? And NFTs are like, it's just the next step. It's just the digitized version of that, It's a digitized version of a Porsche or something like that, Like,
yeah. Well, it's even trippier too, though, because it's like you think about if someone bought if they bought an NFT for a song, like that person who purchased the NFT now owns the rights to that song.
Yeah,
that's pretty trippy when you think about it's not just buying a CD and you can't replicate it. It's like, no, someone could literally just like, you got it. You can do what you want with it. You can make it exclusive. And this is where I think, it's going to come down to what we already see in a lot of different markets of, people who buy up like the PS5s or the Xbox Ones, like, or whatever series they're on. You buy 10 of them, right? Or buy out the stock. And then now you can just sell that for as much as you want, or it never sees the light of day. And then you wait 20 years and it's like a Dr. Dre exclusive. Yeah. You're like, hey, remember that like album that I bought like 25 years ago and that person just passed away? Now I'm going to sell it and make quadruple my money.
Yeah. You have that stamp that 20 years ago, you bought that classic and you're like, whoa, that's cool. Like everyone's like, oh shit, it's like having an original signed record by the Beatles in a way.
Yep. Yeah. Forever on the cloud. Like,
well, and it's interesting too, because like you could almost picture and I guess to clarify, like there are some NFTs obviously that provide more value, and in that sense of like owning art and rights to things. I guess I was thinking more of like, digital cats. Like
Mhm.
But I mean,
things.
it's all encompassing though, in truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what it's going to go to.
But that type of NFT, you could almost imagine like loving a band and then almost like you're kind of like buying into the band's stock,
Yeah.
like NFT marketplaces could almost just like be, or if a band made a crypto, like you could just support the band and share in like like ownerships to the music. I don't know what's going on.
Dude, no,
just
that's
coming to my head. But like that you're participating in the growth of this artist and like, hey man, I want to support you guys. Here's some
grow together,
whatever. Yeah, and you grow it together, and then like you help them, but you also maybe like can share in some like royalties or something of NFT. I don't know, but
yeah, dude, that makes sense though. Where it's you now see, and this is the cool thing about the cryptos is it starts to create communities. It's natural. Its natural drive is to create groups where people are going to be investors in different spaces. And because it's kind of like the .com boom, now you're seeing like real estate cryptos, you're seeing golf crypto, you're seeing all these different like domain names and different exchange sites that got sold, to cover all the different types of subjects and things that you could think of. And now that you got to think like, okay, so now it's going to be not only like people have their .com pages, their .orgs, now it's like their .crypto. So now it's like, and I like that aspect like of the band. You buy into the band's brand, you're buying into the band's future. They have their own crypto, like that
That's
changes things. That changes
really,
it's like
it changes everything.
It's like Patreon on steroids.
Yeah,
so you can also make money,
but there's and no middleman. Like you don't need Patreon or well, I guess I don't know how Patreon really works, but I guess
no,
they must be did they make money from like a cut of like fees or something?
They just get a cut, yeah.
Which is probably not. I mean, it's probably like a smaller amount spread out amongst everyone, right? But I think the key is like the middleman is cut out. Like I guess Patreon could be like the crypto, like that would function as a crypto, and so forget what I said.
No, I mean, I think that's just an avenue right there where you'll have the choice, I feel, but the way things are naturally progressing, it's kind of like we're getting rid of all institutions that are inefficient naturally.
Yeah.
And that's pretty dope. Getting rid of a bunch of middlemen.
If you want to compete, you have to up your efficiency, essentially.
And customer service and, just like rewards, I feel like too. Yeah.
And NFT is also more than just art and music too. It's it's going to be in like property and what else is there?
Oh yeah,
dude. We haven't even gotten into like contracts, like
legal
documents, like car sales, like retail. I think like real estate's the biggest one that I'm like interested in because like, dude, when you can start buying real estate and crypto. We're turning life into that much more of a video game just by the nature of how cryptos work. It's like
and
10
not just
jewels, 10 coins.
Like, more to the point of like the NFT piece is like not even just buying it in crypto, but like your certificate is an NFT. Like you don't need to have anything. You just need access to the blockchain that says, hey, this person or this wallet bought this house on this day. They own this house. It's like
that's it. Yeah.
You don't need you don't need someone to sign papers. You don't need like to pay all these thousands of dollars in fees. You just participate in the network.
Yeah, your identification's already in the tag. You can already come to the account. It's already tied to the account, and that's another trippy component too, where you think about it, where there's always this huge stigma that it's like it's really insecure, or there's going to be a lot of laundering and drug money and all this other stuff. It's just like people that say that stuff just really don't look into the technology. It's like, dude, they can find every transaction.
Yeah.
It's all public. And I think that's something that can also kind of rub people the wrong way, that they don't want things out there. And just to reassure people, I'd be like, your stuff's out there anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I think the thing is here is at least now it's being led by the people and not being ran and monitored by, a few banks. Like, I don't know if you guys just saw, but today it was either today or yesterday where that announcement came through where like the current administration wants to they're telling all banks to track people who are doing, and like the IRS to connect them with any type of exchange that goes or transaction that goes over $600.
Yeah, if you have $600 in your bank account, the IRS will have the ability to look into and see your transactions. If you keep $600 in your bank account, that's saying we're going to spy on you without actually putting it in plain lettering. Because who doesn't have $600 in their bank account at one point in the year to pay for rent or food or a mortgage? Like that's just like that's everybody. That means they can spy on everybody. That doesn't give any credibility to cryptocurrency any more than that. Like, come on, bro. Like,
that's very true. Well, especially with the Pandora Papers that just came out too.
Yeah, like this is what it is, bro. Since you said you can track everything, the powers that be don't want that. This is like a silent revolution. Because there's a lot of funny money with people that control the money. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that's behind the scenes that they don't want the people to know about. But when everything is tracked, everything is more efficient. It's a little scary to the people that hold power. This is this is way more than just being able to buy some pizza and Bitcoin, bro. This is actually like a revolution. It's changing the whole entire world, and there's nothing that the powers that be can do about it other than topple their own system. But if it keeps going how it's going and we're connected to the electrical grid, there's nothing that the governments of the world can do about this, man.
And that's a powerful statement right there, though, where you come to realize why there is such a threat and why there is so much scrutiny now. But when you look at it too, it makes even more sense when you start to see all the different countries that have been moving away from that. Like, I think you said it earlier too, Elijah, like, the fact they look at the US dollar falling, you see like Singapore and all these other like Asian countries kind of boosting their utilization of these different currencies and things. And like, that's the stuff where it's going to be a really interesting transition to when and what causes these switches to hit. Because it has to be some type of a crash, right? Like, I think that's the only thing that can be probably safely assumed, is that there's going to be some epic crash that's going to cause a bunch of stuff to go out. And when things get turned back on, you just kind of hope that these different countries have just been kind of waiting in the wing, just kind of like waiting to implement these systems. Because when you look at it, they've been in the works for a while. There's a few countries already doing it. And I think we're being lied to in that sense, that it's like, oh, we're experimenting with this and this. I think they've already figured it out. I think we're really just waiting for the kind of end economic game to crash and blow up, so then they can easily kind of like spoon feed people to why the new systems are going to be better for them.
Oh, you mean like CBDCs and stuff?
Yeah, and just like essentially like banks kind of getting phased out and transitioning to like more of a digital currency, because there's a lot of people that kind of akin it to like the devil, and like mark of the beast, it's this, it's the fake dollar. It's like, no, like this is the true way we can actually escape the man-made corruption of the financial servitude and like slave and debt labor. Where it's, imagine it's almost like Fight Club without the records getting like wiped clean, where it's like, this is a true chance for people to start at zero and really build themselves up, which is something that, again, if you can flip an NFT, I think of people flipping couches and they can make a business out of that. If you can flip NFTs, there's going to be teenagers, I'm sure, that are going to be like 14-year-old millionaires because they're going to be flipping all this different stuff. And I don't know, I just look at it in the sense of just how much it really is opening. Like, it's going far beyond, again, like what you're saying, Gary, it's going far beyond just like buying a pizza and buying like a product and buying a Starbucks coffee. Like, this is truly breaking the institutions that have been the source of like war and like modern day slavery and all this stuff for arguably like since money started being a thing, back in the day. But
would you say fuel and war money or something like that? That's what it's backed by?
Oh yeah, it's backed by like oil and war.
Oil and war. That's what money. It's backed on, man. It's crazy.
But that's the power of it, though. Like, when the US dollar dies in that sense, okay, so where's the urgency for war? Where's the urgency for the oil stuff? Because that's the only reason why it's kept going, is because we need to get the oil to make sure the oil's cheap, so then the dollar can be cheap and it can be the easiest currency. But, I think it was Russia and Saudi Arabia. I think this was like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago now, but they signed a deal essentially like Russia being like, we'll protect the oil fields. And that was always like America's job. So to me, I already see it as globally, everyone's pivoting away from it. It's kind of like, who's going to be the last off the boat? And I have a feeling it's going to be America is going to be the last off the boat.
It makes sense because our country uses, it's our currency, and it would be hardest for to give up that spot of like the world currency.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen though.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing though. And this is where I'm like, this is why it's such an opportunistic time for investors in America, because if you can get in these cryptos, that's the way that you can circumnavigate all the bullshit and essentially just instantly jump brackets just by holding like a few thousand coins of, the top coins or whatever ones you like use case wise. And I think that's where we can really capitalize on, because, although we'll be late to the party, all the major companies and technologies that are going to be in this new world are American companies.
Yeah. Right. It's ironic.
But that's why we're seeing such an aggressive assault, trying to like stop the people from getting into cryptos. That's why it's so much shit talking against it, and why it seems like, you used to talk to crypto to people like 8 months ago. They think you're batshit crazy.
I still talk to people who think I'm crazy.
Well, then you got JP Morgan Chase being like, yeah, we're developing this different department. We're opening up, our clients to be able to buy like hedge fund, like millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Like,
I know, and I think the thing is, to us, that it rings bullish, and we're just like, oh yeah, like finally. I mean, to be fair, I really have only been like a skin in the game, this market, so like I haven't been in it as long, but I just studied like a fiend, so it was just. But to other people, it's like I think there'll always be people that maybe don't fully understand, and maybe it just, at least in our lifetime, that it just remains like a speculative thing. Like it's just the stock market. And there will always be risk unless, maybe the US like it makes a crypto their currency, but it's, because someone sees like, oh, this big institution is buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. And they're just like, oh, well, like they invest in the stock market too. Like they're just doing their own thing, trying to make money and extract money out of this market. They don't see or study or know that like they're doing this for a reason, that they're doing this because it's sound money and there's actual like potential and benefit in these projects. So I mean, I don't know. I just think that there might always be a portion of the population that's just like, we're crazy crypto kids.
Yeah, right. It's gonna. So I mean, all right. So we're talking about the decline of the U.S. dollar. Do you think it's gonna be a catalyst event where all of a sudden like it's just like a boom within a few weeks and people are gonna respect cryptocurrency more, or do you think it'll be like a gradual process of the dollar losing its value, which is happening right now, and at the same time it's losing its value, because of inflation? Crypto is rising, just be like this kind of steady decline of the US dollar and then steady increase of the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies?
I think it's going to be, I have to get a charger, so I'll go first and then, but yeah, I think it's going to be steady because I do think there's going to be a crash event and the dollar's going to lose value. There's going to be a lot of shit that happens like that probably would make COVID look like a walk in the park. Like this is like, we're talking about financial underpinnings of our society, but I think the crash is going to happen. And I don't think it's going to be instant to where people are just like, oh, Bitcoin. I think it's going to be like, this crash happened and we have to deal with it. Like it's going to be, if it's 08 level, people can still deal with it. If it's Great Depression level, I mean, then maybe people will more people will flee to crypto. But I think the US, you just look at how they're acting. The people in power are just clutching on for like dear life. And it's all they've known and it's all that they have worked for. And really the way I think it's going to happen is just waiting for, I mean, it sounds bad, but like for those people to die, like for the people that see more potential in how we do things, to be able to take power. And the only way that happens,
the change.
And the only way that happens is that, you know, the people that are holding us back don't hold office anymore and hold the power, and you know they age out of this existence.
Yeah,
well,
age out of existence. Exactly.
Interesting. Well, I think that one thing that's getting ignored is like the critical mass aspect, where it's like we're already on this trajectory of like we're kind of like traveling behind the planet. You know, we're in the shadow, going through that dark night of the collective dark night of the soul to get slingshot back into like the outer space, wherever our direction is. But in this light of just the transition, I think that's where we're going to have the remnants of cash still be there for all those old people. Excuse me. Of all those old people who, you know, don't connect with the internet, who don't have smartphones, you know, they're going to be able to get, you know, whatever new modern day cash there is. But in the rest of the 80%, 85%, I mean, I think of every smartphone user is going to, you know, all it takes is one of these systems to just download Coinbase for everybody, you know, to download one app for everybody. So then everyone's on this network automatically. Like, and I think that's something that's even more interesting is like if something happens with the banks and they crash and they have to kind of like foreclose, and then people are automatically like hooked into the new system based on their banking information. Like there could be a lot of different things that happen, but I think the most realistic is we start to see the decline in the dollar, which we're still seeing, but we start to see it really crash because of like supply chain issues. And when that hits, inflation will hit. When people start to see that the dollar is just kind of just going off the rails, that's when I think we see this mass exodus event of people and investors that leave these different markets and go to safer things like different commodities, you know, like lumber, mining rights, metals, cryptos. And then you just see this crazy mooning season, you know, and that's inevitably going to get hit by some type of a dip and correction. And I think after that type of an epic fall and all these systems are just kind of just left in shambles, then we're going to start to see the kind of clearing of the ground and restructuring of the financial systems. Or how I honestly have a feeling things might go, cryptos just completely decouple from everything and just start there and are just become their own markets and just become their own. Like, I really do see that could be like the most realistic results of it, because the more all these other altcoins decouple away from Bitcoin, the more that, you know, the crypto markets decouple away from like the stock markets, dude, like we're starting to see its own, like, in its own organism, right? Start like financial organisms start to be born. And it's almost at that point where like, I don't know, I see a lot of things being rigged within it, but I also see a lot of things that are separate from like the global happenings. Unless it's some type of war or some crazy event, I don't really see a big catalyst happening overnight. I could see it building for like a few weeks, and then us like see it kind of just start to rage out for like a month or so, and then fires everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's gonna keep going up unless we have, you know, unless an asteroid hits the Earth, or there's some kind of solar flare, or the electrical grid goes down, you know, some kind of cataclysmic event. As long as we're connected to the grid, you know, like some kind of electrical grid and the internet, the internet doesn't go down, like in South Park. If the internet doesn't go down, then I think it's always going to be a thing. Like, even if we do run into those things that you just mentioned, like with inflation, supply chain issues, and you know, maybe some food shortages and stuff like that, as long as we're still connected and we have this technology, it's gonna be with us. You know, I don't think it's going anywhere unless, like I said, an asteroid hits the Earth. Then that's when like cryptocurrency doesn't mean anything.
Nothing matters at that point, right?
Yeah, nothing matters at that point. That could just imagine that, like this whole 2-hour conversation we're having about crypto and the future and NFTs and where the world's going, then all of a sudden just an asteroid hits tomorrow and this is all bullshit. This doesn't mean anything.
That would be the cosmic dance, right? Like, I'm sure we'd all
like,
wake up on the other side being like, God damn it.
we got duped, bro. We got
We're
duped.
so close.
You're so close.
But I mean, I look at like the kind of mass societal shifts, you know, where there's a lot of fear. There's still a lot of kind of like lower, like center, kind of like egoic living. And that ultimately is kind of the promise and prophecy that cryptos could fulfill, right? Is that like it could truly be that game-changing technology that allows every person to really kind of get out of poverty and to almost like, I mean, I just think of something like a, you know, how dope GoFundMe's and things like that could be, you know, different types of like really charity and community based events, you know, being able to like actually imagine a rural area staking all the money they have, you know, to make profit that they would never make off of tourism, or, you know, when we have pandemic, something that would be impacted by people, you know, imagine if little villages and communities could come together and really actually like put something together with their money. And I think this is the real global aspect of how much is really opening up society wise with cryptos, is that it completely changes the way that we can actually operate as people in this financial world. Like, I think to me, the biggest thing is, again, it comes back to that community aspect where it's like you can really all do things that would be amazing that would never be possible with banks. Not, you know, you couldn't get a bunch of friends to go stake a bunch of money in like JP Morgan Chase and be like, hey, we'll give you $30,000 if you know, we're asking for a 10% return. You know, they're gonna be like, fuck off. Like, we'll take your money, but you're not getting that much money back. You know, to be able to actually have that type of return weight in people's hands. And again, like, the technologies that will only grow from this are just going to completely blow our minds. Like, there's things that are just hidden in the consciousness, like the subconscious mind, that like we haven't even thought of. But Star Trek is like the fantastical expression of just like how dope the world could be. Because again, you think about it's the speed at which these technologies are opening, because we're getting into, again, that quantum, that singularity aspect things of technology, where it's just like, dude, things are going to start to progress so fast because they're going to need to be more efficient when all these technologies become more mainstream, that like, who knows what type of dope communication stuff that's going to open up. You know, I just think of like the movie, it's an old school movie, Johnny Mnemonic. It's like a Keanu Reeves movie. And it's essentially like you can plug it. I think it's based in 2012, you know, like, you know, everyone can plug into the internet, like in the back of their head, and like literally like VR themselves through things and like go into a computer program, go into the network and like break the security like it's a video game, you know? And it comes to this point where that is just how dope, like, and how high speed things could get, is that we could all just have these different glasses or contact lenses that are just instantly connected to this grid that all of the technologies that our financial systems are based off of. So it becomes like a Minority Report thing, minus the authoritarianism.
Yeah, exactly. We're moving into the matrix without it's like moving into the matrix in the mainframe, the grid, whatever you want to call it, but without like a controlling structure.
Well, it's almost like we would become the machines. I don't know.
Yeah.
like we're not trapped in the matrix. It's like we are able to be the matrix. Yeah. But like to your point of the power that it gives people, and I guess there's so many times we've come across this point, but it's really just that redistribution of wealth, which sounds like it's just repeated over and over. But you think about like DeFi, you know, the bank is already doing that. Like if you give your money to a bank and then keep it in there, they're just going to take that money, lend it out, and then instead of giving you some of that profit, they just take it all.
100%.
DeFi, and like you said, the community aspect, it's all like tying together, except we just cut out that middleman and we're all participating and we're all reaping the rewards. It's like, why wouldn't we do this in the first place? You know, we're just, you know, setting up basically monopolies, and cryptos can just topple all that. I just love that, you know, that
power to the people, man.
Yeah.
The utilization of free will to another degree. And that's the avenue of the crypto environment and ecosystem that's going to unfold, that I think is the dopest part, where it truly does, you know, you are the keeper of your coins. I don't know if you want to call it that, but like you're the keeper of you're the holder of your own bag. And just that alone, like, I think that just empowers people to a different level that we may not fully understand what that's going to do to the psychology of people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you think about like when people always stressing for bills and stuff, being like, oh, I owe the bank this, they're going to foreclose on this, they're going to do this. Like you're kind of stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze response. But with the people who hold your livelihood in their hands or in their account. And that's the stuff for me that it's like, yo, imagine someone fully understanding that it's just like, oh, I'm not going to get charged if I withdraw money out, because I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to borrow money I don't have. You know, I'm not going to be able to go outside of my means to get things. I have to be more strategic about it. But also that fact too, where it's like, I'm not going to be getting charged $45 a month because I don't have like enough money in my account, you know? So it's like, you're going to start to see all these little things where just regular people, most people from what I've learned, are not good with managing money, especially in America. And just that factor alone, banks take advantage of that ignorance. And I really do feel like if people understood like the potential of what we're talking about here and like what really opens up society wise, like, you know, your own independent staking, community aspects, just the DeFi and just getting around all these middlemen. If more people understood that's the kind of empowerment that's going on, I think a lot more people would be really quick to get into cryptos. Because I think a lot of people are waking up to this kind of bank corruption, especially with like, what was it, Chase, who did all that overdraft fees during like the pandemic and like made billions off of people. Because they just like, yeah, like they weren't supposed to be charging overdraft fees for stuff, and they just like pocketed it because people like unemployment, a lot of things were delayed government wise. So they're just like, you shouldn't be doing this. They're kind of like, well, it's already done, you know?
Yeah, that's messed up.
How many people lost rent, you know, didn't pay bills because they couldn't, you know, deal with that bank shafting? That's not going to exist anymore. And you're not going to have that, you know, serf master type of bullshit over your head with like, oh, the bank. Oh, it's the bank. No, you're your own fucking bank. Like,
yeah. I like how you said they prey on people's ignorance of how to manage wealth or just money in general, and also they prey on people's ignorance, kind of. I was gonna say of technology, but it's not really like the banks prey on people's lack of knowledge of how to use technology, but it's like that's what they're relying on right now for cryptocurrency not to take off. Because if people did have the know-how of how to do this, if everybody had the know-how of how to you know, DeFi and how to send Bitcoin and like even just the basics, and also a little bit of knowledge of how to manage wealth, that's knowledge is power, and that's power to the people to be able to say, I don't need you, central entity, to control my money. But right now, the only reason we're still in the beginning stages, we're still so early, is because so many people are still so ignorant of how powerful this truly is. But once we enlighten ourselves to the power of cryptocurrency and how it's changing us, it's inevitably just going to change the system and change the way we do business, I guess you could say, change the way that we handle the energy of money and power altogether. Yeah. But the people that hold the power right now don't want that. They rely on people not knowing how much power they truly have. It's pretty crazy.
Facts. Big facts. Yeah, couldn't have said that better myself. That was beautiful. It's the facts though.
And world's changing.
Well, it's kind of like a snowball effect too. I mean, I had always known about Bitcoin, like not always. But since like, man, it was like 2012 or something. Like it's always been on my radar. But I, you know, at some point I was one of those people who was just like, you know, it's like I don't really know about that, but it seems weird. And then
that funny money.
And then you like actually. Like something causes you to actually get into it and research it, and then things just start to click, you know, and then things just start to click, and then it, like, at least for me, and you know, I would assume you guys, like, something just takes over, like you can't stop, like this thing just like almost just like infect is a bad word, but it just like spreads over your being, and like it consumes like a portion of your person, you know, and
that call to action.
Yeah. And it's a snowball effect. It's like the more people that get into it, like this bull run is going to be insane, I believe. and I think it will crash, and that will suck for a lot of people, but more people will be in the space, and there's going to be institutions in the space, and then the next bull run after this, like, you know, it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Like, you can't stop the network. The network keeps spreading, and
well, it's like 2.5 trillion already, like a little bit more than that already in like the total market cap. And I think, what was it, in kind of like the little bull flare up that we had, the moment that hits 3 trillion, everything started to skyrocket. Like everything. It didn't matter what coin you were into, like the whole market was going up. So I think we're reaching that point of just, it doesn't take a lot. And I think that's the thing about cryptos, is that it's not just the US market, it's global, and it doesn't sleep. You know, so I think there's going to be a day like where we will wake up, you know, on this side of the globe, and we're just like, yo, I am like exponentially more wealthy. You know, I think that day is going to happen, and I think it's going to trip a lot of people out. So it's like, I always just try to say, like, you know, have exit plans. Like, you know,
it's funny you mentioned that, because that was my first lesson. You know, like I said, this is my first cycle, and when I noticed it too. I was like, it was everything's going up, and like, I mean, I knew about like alt season and stuff, but it was like, and I even knew people, you know, people saying like, once these, you know, basically, you know, they call them shit coins, start pumping, like, you better start taking profits. Like, this is when things like potentially can crash really hard. And, you know, it's like, I just remember thinking like, the hell is pickle finance? And it's just like 2000%, you know, it's just like, should have been a clear sign to start, like, to take some profits from like my altcoin, you know, bags. But yeah.
Oh yeah, dude.
That was wild. Yeah, it definitely didn't matter what you had. It was just going up.
Well, that's the stuff too, where it's, you know, if you guys had to pick a coin or coins, what do you think is the one that's going to be like? I mean, obviously, I think people at this point kind of know where I'm at. I'm the XRP guy. I'm like, I truly see that as like the center of the financial system, regardless if it's the CBDC or just like the different public aspects to it. Like, but I think that's probably the biggest one. I think Cardano's like ADA is also another big one. I think realistically, like that, and like maybe like XLM, Algo. I don't know. I think there's like a handful of coins that I think already are so efficient and have dope use cases that I think they actually might kind of like quickly outpace the kind of more grandfatherly coins.
I think so too. I think there is a certain kind of it's like Bitcoin and Ethereum have been around for a long time, and just the name of what they are and the amount of projects that are being built on them almost hold them in a certain sense of immortal value. Even if the technology, even if other people's technology and other companies' technology has the same kind of you know, innovations and the same kind of utilizations, I still think, even though it might even be a better technology, it's just about people knowing the name at this point, unfortunately. And I think that's a good and a bad thing. That's just how I think cryptocurrencies are going to kind of develop. And it's going to be, you know, the technology is obviously going to be important in the long run, but I think in order for it to just, because there's hundreds of different coins and takes on the blockchain, right? But in order for it to like kind of take off, it needs funding, like literal people to put money into it. And sometimes that all it takes is like, you know, a meme or just a community around it, or just, you know, someone like Vitalik Buterin, like just who he is as like a figure in the Ethereum foundation. Like, people know Ethereum. It's more than just like having good technology, even though it is very important, I think, in this business space. But it's more about it's not about who did it first, it's about who did it right, but also doing it right. I mean, I'm sorry, but also doing it first is very important. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think Bitcoin will always hold a place, and Ethereum too.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, it's hard. It's like we are in that web boom, right? So you have to think about like how many of those companies failed when that actually like busted.
Yeah.
And even just on the other side of this market, like there's going to be thousands of coins that just basically go to zero, you know? I mean, but ultimately I think it's going to be like Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, probably like a lot of the ones that are in like near the top 20 right now are going to be big players, and
Yeah.
I could very well see like Bitcoin and ETH, XRP, ADA, Solana for sure, DOT.
Do you guys know Tezos?
Yeah, Tezos. I could see Tezos, and I could see Litecoin sticking around. Chainlink for sure. What I think might just happen is that like there's going to be a number of coins and crypto that come out strong, and they prove that they can survive a full Bitcoin cycle and not go to zero. And you're going to see maybe like, comes back to the community aspect of like, oh, like I like Avalanche, I want to be in the Avalanche community. These are my homies. This is what we're doing. Maybe we donate to like these causes and stuff. And then you have the XRP community, and like, I mean, XRP has proven itself to be useful to, government entities too. So it's like, I mean, there's going to be different things going on.
Oh yeah.
Just like but there's going to be like a clear head. Like, yeah, there's Amazon and Facebook, but there's also like Alibaba and, you can Etsy, like you can just buy from independent shops. So
yeah.
And as far as it comes to finance, I think ultimately that would be the best case. Like in DeFi, we would have multiple options, and but yeah, I mean, when I look at this list of like coins, I just everything near the top 20, I could see like staying around.
Yeah, I think I'd almost even push like the top 100.
Yeah.
Like if you make that, like if you make that top notoriety where it's like your market, or at least if your market cap's over at like what, I'd say it's safe to say if you're in like a trillion, or not a trillion, you're in for $1 billion for your market cap. Like you got to have enough push for that. I think the only one who has $1 trillion in their market cap is Bitcoin. But like just the fact that like,
yeah, because these are all good projects. I mean, I keep scrolling down and it's like there's good stuff here. It's just I mean, I guess what I mean is the big players, like the top 20 will shuffle around, And,
do they have the capital? Do they have like already have like the market cap to kind of take a hit like that? And that's the stuff where it's like we'll see. But I think the biggest stuff that comes down to it is like I really don't think people fully recognize like how important this SEC case is.
Yeah.
If like I think that's where it's like we as a society got really lucky with like the judges that are appointed to this, because they're really open to seeing different things. And I mean, I'm part of that like public class action lawsuit that like, what is it, John Deaton, I believe, like started up. And it's just like the more people that can really say that like, this isn't okay, SEC, the easier it's going to be for a decision for the judges to actually make a decision. And I think that's the thing here, is that the judges have sympathy for the markets, because they are starting to realize how big of a community like cryptos as a whole is, and is actually like impacted by this. Because again, like if they come down on XRP, like it's like what you were like what everyone was saying earlier, really, it's like they're just going to go after someone else, and it's just going to be a never ending like, circle jerk of just like bashing these different cryptos and pushing away innovation. I don't know, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, but I'm super hopeful and positive that we're going to be at this point of really cool economic and financial liberation, but we're going to have to go through some shit. Can't lie about it. Like, it's going to be just as cool as it's going to be to see a world where silver is, not rigged, where it's like a few $100s to thousands of dollars like gold is. You see where gold and all these other metals are actually getting, appraised as they should be. You see cryptos not getting rigged, the stock not getting rigged. Like, that's going to change people's lives, but it's going to have to come to this point for a fair market where the current corrupt market comes crumbling down.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be, man.
Burn it all down.
It's going to change a lot.
We don't know. We don't even know. I think that's the thing, is
knows.
Like, truthfully, because there's just so many X factors.
Yeah, I mean, it's like trying to predict the future, which like
with the quantum computer.
Well, historically, we've just been terrible at predicting like how things will shape out and like when they might happen. Just as like a species, like, oh, there's gonna be flying cars in 2010. It's like, no.
Okay. I think military wise, we probably have all that shit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Without a doubt.
But yeah, I don't know. It's all just so, and that's kind of the excitement of it. Is like, it's just it's vague. It's exciting. Like it's like a new frontier. It's like exploring. Except you're not like physically getting out there, but it's to be a part of something like this. It's like so revolutionary, and just has that potential to open up so many more possibilities. I think that's why even just investing in a strong cryptocurrency that may not be doing much right now. Like, I mean, really ADA, it's up there, but like it doesn't have much functionality at this moment, I mean, but
just got a bump from some partnerships, and that's kind of just where it's been chilling, right?
Yeah. And just participating in that network though, and like being able to be a part of this like financial revolution is in itself just like so awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
Pioneers.
Yeah, we're pioneers.
You get like one of those explorer hats. You buy your crypto, like look at the charts.
That's great. Yeah, well, we are though, like consciousness financially. I think like our generations are the ones that, and obviously there's some, other like wise old souls that have been incarnated a lot longer to kind of guide us in that sense. But I think that, our generation really is the what would you call it? We're the creators, we're the generators, we're the manifestors, we're the builders, we're the architects, we're the artists, whatever you want to like coin it as. We're the ones here that are really meant to kind of resonate with the truth and spread that shit. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot more people that are kind of objective and more separated and detached from kind of the ego, that's why there's a lot more people like that in the crypto space, is because we see the potential of it on all the different avenues. And although we're self-proclaiming, we don't know shit, and we don't know nearly where it could go, we're still at least entertaining the fact of like, just in concept, how powerful these ideas are when they're applied on different levels. And I think that's the thing that's really exciting about this, is because it comes back to that childlike freedom of the only thing limiting us right now is our imagination of what we can do with it.
Exactly. Well said, man.
Yeah.
Damn, I think we could probably wrap it up at that. That was good. You can either watch from the sidelines or you can be a part of it, and you can become the architect of the future, man. We can become a part of it. That's what's like how we started this whole conversation, man. We're going through this collective change, and you can either be a part of the change or you can watch from the sidelines and watch the whole world change right before your very eyes. Because if you don't get it at this point, I don't know what to tell you, bro.
It's gonna be rough going forwards.
Yeah,
well,
it's gonna be a rough ride.
You're gonna be like all those uncles and aunts that were like, "Oh, I should have listened to my friend who said to invest $200 into Google, into Amazon stock when it was like 2 pennies."
Yep.
Times like a million and sprinkling some steroids. That's the equivalent of like what crypto could do for people.
Yeah, pretty much, man. You just got to do your own research. It takes is just taking the time to disconnect from, TikTok, Netflix for a little bit, read about cryptocurrency a little bit. You don't even have to read that much into it. You kind of just, take maybe half an hour a day, we'll say, something like that. That's all you need. And if you take the time to do that, there will probably be a light bulb moment in your mind. Right. I think we know what we're talking about. Like that moment, you're just like, oh shit, this is going to change everything. And all it takes is to just do your research, man. That's what I encourage people, man. Like, I don't try to like preach it at all. I'm just like, hey man, just take the time, go on Google, go on Reddit. There's resources, YouTube, podcasts, whatever it is. Just take the time for yourself to really figure out what this is, because it's going to change everything. And it can change your life too, which is pretty cool. Like it can literally make you financially freer. So knowledge is power, man. That's really what it comes down to. Just do your research and you'll become a more sovereign, more powerful individual. And that's all I gotta say.
Facts.
Amen.
Facts. Big facts.
Yeah, guys. This was a cool talk. This was like 2.5 hours, I think, and it felt like 5 minutes. So
I know, yeah.
And there's so much more to talk about too, in truth. Like,
hey, let's do this again, man. Let's make a podcast where we just talk about crypto, because the thing is like there's always going to be something to talk about, because it's an evolving technology. So it's not like something that will ever get old. You know what I mean?
Facts. Totally down.
If you want to do this again, man, let me know.
I'd be down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Send that.
Because there's always news. You can always just talk about the news, even, and
just the speculation about it, and just the different, because like there's definitely going to be some crazy stuff that happens within the next few months that I'm going to want to talk to somebody about it, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it. So
yeah, let's fucking do it. It's about to get wild. Like,
dude, did you see the XRP demo that happened where they used a vending machine offline?
No.
So, but it still connects to your app. So like whenever your app is on the network, it like essentially adjusts like the funds, but it's like, so you can use your wallet offline. So it's going to start essentially the way I think about it. It's almost like the, kind of like that. What is that HBO show? But it's a Silicon Valley, where it's almost like that Pied Piper tech, where it's like every smart device or aspect will be able to carry a little bit of like a signal. So technically you're never like off the grid. Damn. There's always some memory storage of the network that would update. But it's like, it's crazy just to see like the integration of what we're going to be doing is like, it's going to be fascinating just to see these technologies play out. I mean, I'm like completely dumbfounded the fact that like, if you can send money across the globe in 3 seconds, for pretty much free. That blows my mind.
Yeah, that right there, just the simple base use of Bitcoin, like not even going into DeFi or anything, not even going into NFTs, just that simple idea, which is pretty much the base. That's the Bitcoin 101. That's basic. You can send a lot of money anywhere at an instant. Nobody in between. Just that simple fact, like me handing you a $5 bill. Well, I can hand a $500,000 bill to somebody in Japan,
and securely,
instant too. and it's secure. It's crazy, man. It's really insane.
It's funny you brought up Silicon Valley, because when I first got into crypto, I had just finished like rewatching Silicon Valley, and then I was like researching cryptos. I found Theta, and I was like, oh shit, that's like Pied Piper, because like their projects in the show, they do a decentralized streaming service which uses like users of the network. They all contribute. And then another one was the one they not ended with, but before they got to like the finale, they were doing like file storage. And then I forget which project it was, but there's a project like that. I think Ccoin does that. Yeah. And maybe one other one. But yeah, it was just in this weird moment of like, oh man, dude, like this tech, it doesn't need to be like science fiction, like it's possible. It's just like we haven't been trying to do it. So
no motive, no market. And now we're getting ready to unleash the beast, where it's like
unleash the beast.
Any of that stuff can go though. Like I think one of them that you're talking about, like I think it's Filescoin, or Filecoin does something similar to that too.
Yeah.
In terms of storage, but like just the fact that like we're going to be having like coins in tech that'll be able to do things that cut out all these bigger like businesses and institutions. It's just like, dude, people don't even really understand. Like this is going to make life so much easier once we get the ball rolling with it. And then it'll be really crazy just to see how much potential is unlocked. Like imagine not wasting time for anything. Buying a car, doing anything, just like a contract on your phone.
If we get a DMV coin, that would be great.
Still be slow as shit. What is this, like 8 seconds?
That's a Dan Cook joke, right?
Pretty much. Like the DOL still takes like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
People are teleporting.
I'm gonna be at work in 3 seconds.
It's a good conversation when a Dan Cook reference comes up, though.
Yeah, dude, that takes me back. That's like, damn,
guy was ahead of his time.
Shout out Dan Cook.
Yeah, shout out Dan Cook. Get in that crypto.
Yeah, man, we're moving into Star Trek. Every day that goes by, we're getting further and further into the Matrix, man. Into the spaceships, into the realm of sci-fi. It's becoming Sci-Real, man. It's
Sci-Real.
Sci-Real, bro. This is it. And this is just the beginning.
I like that. Well, that's the trippiest thing when you look at the fact of we now know that like government's been playing with alien aircrafts. I mean, a lot of us have known that for a while, but like that we've been playing with alien aircrafts, and you think of some of the stuff that the whistleblowers or like people that are in these, organizations or like whatever, like black book projects, what they're called, essentially like off the books, high government contracts that do this type of stuff, like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, all them like do their own different stuff with it, I guess. But it comes back to that point where consciousness was the vehicle of these like craft, is that they were all interfaced through the consciousness, which is just like, and it's not like something like implanted and chipped into the person or the user. It's just the fact that it's designed to actually be integrated with the energy of our consciousness, which is like, that's to me the true next level shit of like cryptos and blockchains and what all this stuff could really offer. Because it's like, well, if we're starting to get into this quantum aspects of function, it's just like, at what point do we then have these? I mean, there's also like, I know a lot of people that do AI trading, like they just have their little bot set up, so it's like it does its thing on its own, whatever, and just liquidates and just makes pretty decent profits. But it's like, that's just a basic AI. We're going to get to this point where it's like, just imagine how smart AI can get, where it's like, it could be to a point where it's like the vehicle or smartphone that we have literally is a smartphone. It is a conscious phone that we integrate with, and that we can be like, and like get our information that way. Like, I don't know, it's trippy. It's trippy, but
it's really trippy.
Think about this.
Yeah.
This is a fun trick that people can do. I did this with my niece and nephew. I was like, how do you talk on a phone? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, if I'm going to be like, hello, how do you talk on a phone?
Yeah, they go like this.
And they go like this. I remember saying that, but it's like, but this is one of those things where it's like, this is the aspect of just how quick things like that generationally can change. I think these generations that are coming up, they're not going to even know concepts of really cash. They're not going to know concepts of banks. They're only going to know financial liberation. They're only going to know like being connected with being consciously in control of your technology. It's not going to be like the younger generation right now where they're like super addicted to it. It's going to start to be this different relationship where I feel like consciousness wise and like evolutionary, like societal wise, that we're going to start to finally assert our role over technology rather than be used by it. And that's another one of those subtleties of it that I think is going to start to get revealed as things play out, of just how much you can do with technology. But that's just like sprinkling some future shit.
Damn. Yeah. It's crazy time to be alive. Amazing time to be alive, I think. And it's interesting to say the least. It's definitely interesting where we're going, bro. And it's just the beginning. I think this is just the beginning of a whole new age, bro. This is where the party starts. I think so. This is kind of just like right before we jump off into a whole new age, the Aquarian age, as they call it. It's happening, man. If you're tapped in, you can feel it. Something's happening. Something's in the water, bro. Something's in the air.
Something's in the water.
Oh man. Yeah, but I think I'm gonna sign off, dude.
Facts.
This was a really good talk.
Definitely.
Thanks again.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Gary.
Yeah, you
thanks
too.
for having me on, man.
Hey, you guys are great. Let's definitely do this again.
Well.
Yeah, other than that, peace out, and peace out to everybody that listened.
Much love. Peace.
One love.